This audio presentation of How to Live Life and Love It by Genevieve Baron is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2011, all rights reserved. Forward. The purpose of this series of personal pointer lessons, which are herein compiled into one volume, is to indicate in a clear, concise way the natural principles governing the relation between the creative action of all thought power and material things, i.e., circumstances and conditions. If these few simple principles are carefully studied and mastered to your satisfaction, and then put into practical hourly application, the student will find very soon that it is possible for man to make conscious contact with the Almighty, ever-present, never-failing God. And this just naturally means individual freedom, freedom from every form of limitation and bondage of any nature. Read Mark 9:23. Then try to believe that the Spirit of life, which is your life also, knows how to live life and love it. All the joy life has to give is yours right now. Let us start on the highway to unqualified success now. God is our guide. Your loving companion, Genevieve Baron. Chapter 1. Master, let us begin this morning's lesson with the certain knowledge that every living thing really wishes to enjoy life. Once one really has entered into the true spirit of life, that person cannot help loving to live and is certain to enjoy life. Pupil, that is just it. If one could get into the spirit of living life, I am sure everyone would enjoy it. But it seems to me that the general run of humanity live in the spirit of death rather than of life. The average person I know is always wishing that he could, but at the same time knowing that he can't. That does not seem like real living. Master, indeed, that is not living, and people who live in that form of mental action are the living dead. Let us see if we cannot find an easy, logical method of entering into the true spirit of life. We know that we must enter into the spirit of a book, or a picture, or music, or else they are entirely meaningless to us. To really appreciate anything, we must share the mental attitude of the creative thought and feeling which brought them into outward form. Pupil, now I am wondering if getting into the spirit of a thing would be getting into the spiritual prototype of the thing we may wish to enjoy. For example, I should very much enjoy a home of my own, a husband and children. Can one really get into the spirit of these good things before one does have them, or before one can see them in form? Master, I am pleased that you mention the spiritual prototype is the spiritual or mental purpose of a thing, and is the true place of origin of anything. So you wish a home, husband, children? Pupil, yes, a home in the country, not a large house, one just large enough that we can live in every room of it. Master, the house is to be the home? Pupil, why yes, of course. Master, I ask this, you see, because just a house may not always be a home, while a mere tent may be. Your prototype for the home would be protection, shelter, freedom. To begin at the beginning, let us get into the feeling of perfect protection, shelter, and freedom. Let us really feel in tune with these qualities of spirit, and they in their turn will attract unto us the ways and means for the home. Pupil, so far I have been jumbling everything together in my thought. Should I not take each thing separately and try to enter into the spiritual origin or purpose of that one thing before going on to another? Master, by all means finish planting one thought securely in the mind before trying to introduce another. After you have really turned into the feeling of protection, shelter, security, freedom, then begin to mentally build your house and people it with a husband and children. Thus you are making a mental picture of the forms you wish the creative energy to take. Be specific and accurate in making your mental picture, remembering that the mental picture you make is the mold into which the unformed spirit is poured for solidifying into actual outward form. The house itself may be a bungalow, or a two-story house, or may be of brick, stone, wood, or whatnot. It may have any number of rooms, doors, windows, fireplace, etc. In other words, you must first mentally blueprint your house. When your mental picture is perfectly finished, and your feeling is that these things are yours now, and you know that your mind is in perfect tune with the source of all things. Then, and not until then, are you ready to take the next step into the attainment of your desires. Pupil. But the matter of the right husband, what seems very difficult for me. First, I am not in the right position to contact men, and now I have only 2 men acquaintances, neither of which I should care to live with in my model home. Master. What you say does not enter into the matter at all. All that the individual does is to place into the originating creative power the quality one wishes to differentiate, just as one plugs into the electric current in the house when one wishes to use it. The light, the heater, the refrigerator, the fan, the iron, or any other thing one may want to use, all are there. All the power is already there too. It is ready and waiting. All that is necessary is your recognition of it and your taking action to utilize it. Your recognition and your desire causes you to make the right contact, and the power that is there does all the rest. The ways and means of your meeting the one and only husband are not your own concern. They form themselves into line automatically as a result of your turning on the correct switch. Pupil. Do you mean that it is not necessary for me to do anything to try and meet people? Do I not have to go to parties or visit friends? Sometimes when I should be much happier at home, I go to such places and do such things, because there is always a chance of meeting the right one there. Master, all of that is entirely unnecessary. The power you have turned on within yourself is an attracting power. Remember this. To give you an example, one time when we were in Chicago, living at the Medina Athletic Club, a young lady came to me with much the same attitude that you express and received the same answer I have here. She was a trained nurse, a graduate of St. Luke's. She was tired of living alone, wished a home, a husband, children. After she had 10 or 12 personal interviews and lessons with me, I told her, one morning as she was leaving our apartment, that it would not be necessary for her to come to see me again. She felt sure also that the contact had been made. Our elevator was on the 42nd floor, and as she caught the elevator down, she said a great wave of peace and contentment came over her. In her heart, she had the consciousness of love and protection even now. At the 34th floor, the elevator stopped, and a young man who was very ill got on the elevator. Almost at once, he folded up on the floor, unconscious. The elevator operator knew him since he had an apartment in the building, and the nurse and operator together got the man back to his apartment, into bed, and sent for the house physician, who said that the nurse had done exactly the right thing. In about an hour, the man regained consciousness and sent for his own physician, who wished to assign a nurse of his own choosing to the case. But the patient insisted on having the nurse who had helped him from the elevator, and kept her in attendance on him until he was fully recovered. Just about 6 months later, patient and nurse were married. Pupil. That was certainly a lucky break for her, that she should take just that elevator at that time. That seems to me like drawing the lucky number on bank night at the theater. Of course, someone always wins, but there is no certainty about it, is there? Master. Really, the two positions are not all that parallel. They are not even similar. With the nurse, it was not luck at all. Deliberately, consciously, in faith, she had plugged into a circuit of great power within herself. The circuit of universal power that we call God or life, and which did produce a perfect reciprocity of feeling and a certain sense of security, protection, provision, and companionship. In other words, she deliberately initiated a train of causation directed to her individual purpose. To quote Troward, just as you would attach the cord to your electric iron if you wished to press close. There was no luck in the matter whatsoever. It was purest science manifesting, as it will and does, in answer to a strong desire scientifically placed. Whether it is plugging into the circuit of electricity energy or tuning in with the creative life principle, the procedure is exactly the same. Pupil, I am beginning to see the light, but the case you have just told me about still seems rather spectacular and unusual. Master, that is because you have not trained the objective quality of your mind to know that it can always trust the intelligent, creative spirit of life within yourself. You are letting preconceived ideas and shallow and false ones take precedent in your mind over pure scientific principle. You do not feel that you need to know the principles of electricity before you can use your vacuum cleaner. All we know about electricity is gleaned from what we see it do. The same thing applies to life. The innermost principles of life will always remain a profound mystery, but one can and should live life to the full in the self and love it. Pupil: I am wondering if the nurse lived happily ever after with her unusually acquired husband, and did they have the home and the children she so much desired? Master: The couple have lived very happily together for a number of years now, and do have a comfortable home and 3 children. I shall explain more of that later. The secret of living life and loving it is this. First, your feeling towards the livingness of life in you, as well as all life everywhere, should be to recognize life as intelligent, and to know that when this intelligence is working through you, it does not change its essential nature. It has always been a receptive power that is agreeable to suggestion, and it is always responsive and creative. This is the basis of Troward's meaning in his words, which I use for my own favorite affirmation, and which quoted is this: My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression, and this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in past experience, though proceeding out of it by an orderly sequence of growth. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner in me. Consequently, in my own special world, of which I am the center, it will move forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before. Once you really plug your individual consciousness into the great power of the universe, the above will be your line of thinking. You will involuntarily look to the life principle in you, not only as the only creative energy, but also as a directive power. That in you will let God determine, through your conscious mind, the actual forms and courses which the conditions for its manifestation will always take in your own individual world. Do remember always that the originating spirit of life, of your life too, is forever a forming power. It is for this reason that we should use such great care in the selection of our habitual thoughts and feelings, for create they will and always. Pupil: How may I know, for example, that my true husband is being guided to me, or I to him? Master: By your feeling of certainty. Even though outward conditions show no sign of the fact, still you are sure, you feel close, you know you are protected. You feel the influences of love all about you. You have stimulated these special qualities of life in your individual world by your having persistently looked to God, knowing that He does manifest in you. Your mental attitude of faith and trust and expectancy has attracted all the joys of life. You realize that all that life has to give is present with you now, just as all that light has to give is present wherever light is. Pupil: Do I understand that if I live as closely as possible in the consciousness of reciprocity of feeling, and know that love is guiding, protecting, and providing for me with its abundance, I can attract these qualities of life in the form of a man? Master: Yes, for the house and the home feel protection, shelter, perfect harmony. For the husband, feel love and joy. Then live in the feeling of these things. Feeling is one of the strongest elements in life, and is also the most responsive. End of chapter. Chapter 2. The Fine Art of Giving. Pupil: It seems to me that the pace you are setting here is going to be rather severe discipline for me. But since it is to be for only a few weeks, if I wish, I shall try it. If there is not a big change for the better, both inside and out, at the end of that time I can stop. Is that not so? Master: Yes, but please do not enter lightly upon this study, and do not seek to cultivate an acquaintance with God for the sake of what you will be able to get from Him. This is a tragic mistake that many people make, and which is difficult for many to rectify. They seek first to get, and promise faithfully that they will then give, but in so doing they have inverted the Spirit's law of compensation, which is good, which is right, and which is immutable, as it is both good and right. Pupil, this sounds interesting. What is this great law? Master, the law is that first we must give, and after we have given, the getting automatically follows, just as day naturally comes with the rising of the sun. But the getting of anything good never precedes the giving of something of value. True giving, giving with love as to unto God himself, cannot possibly impoverish anyone, nor can withholding from the Spirit and its service ever truly enrich one. Verily, 'tis more blessed to give than to receive. Giving as unto God open wide the sanctuary of Jehovah within us, in which we may also find peace. Giving makes a giver a direct channel for the transmission of infinite love and power into one's daily, hourly life. Then will adversity flee, and certain achievement of all things whatsoever ye will follows immediately. But I repeat, first ye must give. Pupil, but what can we give to God if he already has everything? Master, we can give him the one thing of which he does not have too much, of which he can never have too much, of which we can never hope to give him too much. The one thing that God wishes us to give him, first, last, and always, is nothing less than the greatest gift in the universe. Now what is that? Pupil, I am sure that it is love. Master, right, but just what is love? Pupil, well, God is love. Master, that is correct too. But if God is love, what is God? And if love is God, what is love? Pupil, is this a parable? What is love? What is God? That's just what I would like to know too. Tell us, please. Master, just what God is, just what love is, each person must answer for himself. For after all, your conception of God and of love is God and is love to you. But perhaps we can set forth a few thoughts that may prove helpful and which will be practical. To love someone is passion, and can only be conferred upon or come from the opposite sex. To some, love is the tenderness of a mother for her child, or of a doting father for his children. To others, love is the love of friends, parents, or orphans, and there are some who love themselves most of all. But real love is love of God, and for God. To love him is the first commandment, and if one keeps this great commandment, there is no need of any other commandment. For if we really do love God, which is the first and greatest of the commandments, we automatically keep all the others. Pupil, but is it enough to just love God with all of our hearts, all of our souls, and all of our minds? Must we not do something about it as well? Master, certainly, we must do something about it. Love without the fruits of love is dead. If we love God, we will serve him devotedly, faithfully, happily, and continually. Pupil, how best we may serve him? Master, by giving of ourselves to our fellow man, by giving of ourselves to our neighbors as unto others. A scientist, one like Dr. Walter Reed, for example, who gives his very life, and lovingly and gladly, in order to benefit mankind, knows the true love of God. So does the heroic nurse who ministers to afflicted mankind out of sheer love of mankind. So does the self-effacing, self-sacrificing mother, or father, or teacher, or minister. There are many ways in which one may serve. All do not possess scientific talents, nor healing talents, nor comforting talents, but all do possess something they can give. Some who feel themselves unable to serve directly give of themselves by donating money to worthy causes, and these too are serving God, because they love their neighbors and therefore love him. Let me give you an example of true love, as I personally knew it in a wonderful woman, one of many cases that I know. Pupil, yes, do give us an example. They always help to clarify things, and show us how others have done what we wish to do. Master, very well. This divine soul was reared in a home of great wealth and culture, but as a very young woman she made up her mind to go out in the world, on the firing line itself, as she called it, to serve actively and lovingly there. She became a nun, and as such was assigned to a hospital as a trained nurse. As she entered upon her life work, she was filled with love for mankind, with enthusiasm for serving God by serving his suffering ones, and she did serve lovingly, happily, faithfully, tenderly, 8 hours a day or even 12 hours a day. But the hospital was woefully understaffed, and Marie, as we shall call her here, was soon subject to call 16 hours daily, and even during the 8 hours when she was supposed to have the rest, she was often summoned and asked to serve more. Her quarters were right on the same floor with many of the patients, and this ward was her charge day and night. Often at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the bell beside her bed would ring with an urgent summons. She would arise at once, go to the patient, and minister to his or her wants. But in due time she became physically tired, and of course she began to resent the calls that broke into her rest, especially when it seemed to her, as it often did at the times, that the patient merely wished a drink of water, or wanted a pillow adjusted a certain way, or was merely lonely, all of which were irritating trifles to a weary nurse. For a month or more these trials went on, seemingly from bad to worse. Marie resolved almost desperately to do something about it, and immediately. So she cast about for a way to best remedy the situation. For days she thought about the matter, asking the Spirit for guidance. At length the flash came, directly from the Infinite. She took up a little card, wrote down the new motto that had been given her, and fastened it on the wall above her bed, right by the service bell, so that she might see it and be again reminded every time the buzzer rang. On the card she had written, "The Master calls." Of course her system worked from the beginning. Quite soon she was saying in immediate answer to the bell, even while sleepily fumbling for her light, "The Master calls." And she would arise and go and serve, without impatience, without resentment, yes, rejoicing in the opportunity to again serve in love. As a consequence, her energy was untiring. She easily and joyfully did the work of 3 nurses, always rested, always fresh, always efficient, always smiling whenever called. Her patients loved her greatly. She was always cheerful, always encouraging, always aglow, as it were, with a holy love. And to those who did not know her secret, as very few did, the patient she attended seemed to be miraculously healed. Let your motto also be, "The Master calls." And remember that the humblest service that you can render to the lowliest of your fellow men, if rendered in love, is a direct service to him. Pupil, this is a profoundly beautiful and powerful illustration. Is that the motto or the principle that you use in helping the many who come to you? If not, what is your own personal secret of serving? Master, my own method in a way is very similar to that of Marie. Like her, I wish to serve lovingly, to serve as many as possible, to help to the limit of my powers in alleviating any and all kinds of suffering, physical, mental, spiritual, or other forms of unhappiness. Not only do I strive always to help those who seek me out, every person whose hand I take into mine in greeting, every person into whose eyes I look, in all places at all time, yes, even the shop girl who sells me my hose, the milkman who comes to my door, the beggar on the street, everyone to whom I speak at any and all times receives the same strong spiritual impulse from me. I intentionally see the radiant Christ in all. Pupil, but I thought that you told me once you never mentally treat people unless they ask for it. Master, I don't, not specifically under any other circumstances. My secret is this. I have deliberately formed the habit of beholding the Christ in every soul that my eyes fall upon. I do not ever see anyone as being poor, old, ill, bereaved, or lonely, or evil or imperfect in any way. I behold each and all as only perfect. I see only the radiant Christ in every one of them, because the Christ is in each of them. End of chapter. Chapter 3. The Art of Reciprocity. Master, the Bible, the sages of all time, all sources of real truth, unite in absolute agreement concerning one great thing, namely, that God and man are one, and not two, that the two are not separated, but indissolubly joined in perfect and harmonious union. The invisible spirit and the visible form or matter actually are inseparably connected. Each is a complement of the other, and the whole of truth is to be found only in the combination of the two, which really are not two, but one through eternal union. Pupil, I am particularly happy about this conclusion because I used to think that a person could not have both spiritual and physical blessings at one and the same time. I thought that the physical world had nothing of God in it. Yes, I thought that spirit was utterly separated from form or matter. Now I feel sure that the reason I did not make any real progress then was that I was trying to have an inside for life without an outside, and an outside without any inside. In other words, I was simply living in the physical world without being conscious of the fact that forever I have a direct connection with the spiritual realm. I am right, am I not, in believing and feeling that I must have the realization that each is vitally necessary to the other for the formation of a substantial entity? Master, yes, you are exactly right. No one can go very far on the great highway of truth unless he realizes that there never was and never will be an inside to anything without an outside also. While one is visible and the other invisible to the human eye, the only reality is in the combination of the two. A constant awareness of this fact on our part brings us the radiant realization of oneness, of union, that we must have if we hope to make any progress in truth. Pupil, after this one basic realization, what other truth must we have? Master, we must know that underlying the totality of all things is the source of all things, the great cosmic intelligence. We must know that no physical thing of itself only can ever create anything. The physical form is the instrument that life, God, fashioned of his own essence, in order to have something through which he could work his wonders, and give them form also. But he always lives in that instrument. Do not ever lose sight of this fact. The power is always greater than the form through which it manifests, just as electricity is infinitely greater than the bulb through which it manifests as light. It is through union of forms, positive with negative, or masculine with feminine, or spirit with soul, that the creation of all forms or channels or physical things results. This eternal principle runs all through the Bible, is the center of it, the whole substance of it. Seek ye the answers in that great book. Pupil, but many people say that the Bible is antiquated, that it is a book of fables and an old wives' tale, etc. Master, how does this concern you? Which is the more reliable guide, do you think? The spiritually darkened ones who criticize the Bible, or your own soul which knows light when it sees it? Are you going to do your own thinking, or shall you be content to let others do it for you, and wrongly? If we must go to other people in our quest of truth, let us resolve to go to ones who have the light of the Spirit. For instance, what does Troward say of the Bible? Let his wisdom be our guide here. He tells us the Bible is the book of the emancipation of man. He adds that this means man's complete deliverance from sorrow, sickness, poverty, struggle, uncertainty, from ignorance and limitation, and finally from death itself. This noble conception of Troward is exactly what the Bible is. With such a wonderful book in print, one should not be surprised to learn that it has the widest circulation of any book ever published, that is still the world's bestseller. If the Bible were not truth, it would not live through so many generations and still hold its preeminent position. So let us proceed on the assumption that Troward is right, that the Bible does contain the secret whereby the art of living a perfectly free and happy life may be attained. Pupil, but the Bible has never been a very interesting book to me. I have thought of it as an old world fable. Master, It was uninteresting to you because you did not understand it. Nevertheless, it is a most scientific book, full of interesting facts and life-giving truth. The finest book ever written about the greatest of all the sciences, the science of life. Pupil: My parents were religious people, church every Sunday morning, prayers every day, and all of that. But I could never see that they were any better off, or any happier, if as happy, than the neighbors who never went to church. But I shall be glad to make an honest effort to understand and follow whatever you outline, even the Bible if you say so. Master: I know so, and because you are honest in your desire, you will be honest in your thinking, and honest thinking makes a true student. Because you truly wish to understand the art of living, you shall come to know it, and when you know life and really live it, you are certain to love it. The Bible is, I repeat, the book of life, and of life's immutable laws. Remember always that life's laws contain within themselves the solution to every human problem. Indeed, wisdom is the beginning of magic. The Spirit of Christ, or intelligent life, within us is the light of each of us. It will always make the path easy, interesting, and joyous, if only we will study and understand how to use our own divine power, and then really use it. Once one has formed the habit of looking to the Bible for the answer to all problems, it becomes to that person as a lantern carried on a dark night. The next steps ahead may be in total darkness, but when you approach the light, you carry illuminates the path, and you know exactly where to step and just what to do. Your feeling is influenced in the right direction. It is true that the Bible veils its most profound secrets in symbols and parables, but the wisdom is there for the earnest and consecrated seeker. Maybe the author was right when he wrote, "The true artist finds that the materials for his arts are ever present, but the ones who can discern the possible uses of these varied materials, and who possess the instinct, intuition, and training to put them to their best uses are always few in number. The materials out of which art is made are ever present, but the artist appears only at intervals. So it is with the mysterious force we call life. Every person has it, but the ones who understand and use life's finest possibilities, and who get out of it consequently its very richest growth, are really very few in number. So let us put into the study of life our very noblest personal energy. Pupil: It seems to me, judging from what you say here, and from what you have already taught us in these lessons, that our perfecting of the art of living and loving is based upon the training of the mind and feeling to the point where we shall find as much joy and satisfaction in self-discipline as we formerly found in self-indulgences. Am I right? Master: Yes. Once one has gone that far on the path, he is then around the last turn, and on the way that is straight, the path of splendor that leads directly to conscious union with the Father. The Bible says the art of really living and loving life centers around the record of man's thoughts and feelings, his aspirations, inspirations, and experiences, on his discovery of the life spirit as ever-present help in trouble. When a man has found his real self, the God self or Christ radiance within, when he has discovered the infinite possibilities and potentialities with which he is forever surrounded, when he lives these things and loves the life he lives, he becomes the true artist. Then he will use the right materials. Then will he produce the results desired, in a form of the picture that he originally conceived. Pupil: Suppose one has never had the advantage of higher education, that one's whole life has been commonplace and restricted. Would such a one be able to understand and apply these beautiful and interesting truths? Master: Yes, indeed. One's station in life does not make the slightest difference. One may be a woman who is trying to cook a good meal in the one and only room that she has, on a one-burner gas stove. One may be a man who is a shoe salesman and who spends his whole time every day trying to satisfy woman customers who insist upon his trying to perfectly and comfortably fit dainty shoes to their large feet. One may be a king or queen, or a servant or a pauper, high or low, exalted or humble. Man is a spiritual being, so long as he can think he can always change the outer or physical effects to suit the desire of his heart. And the very first steps lie in the thought and in the feeling. Pupil, when one's whole environment is one of poverty or illness or other dark limitations, how can one have beautiful and hopeful thoughts? Is it not true that the environment influences one's thoughts and feelings? While one is forced to live in the same adverse environment, I do not see how there can be much change. Master, if one were perfectly satisfied with an environment such as you described, there could not and would not be any change. But if one were divinely dissatisfied with such conditions, and very much wished to change them, it may be done any time, as completely as one may wish by resort to and to use the laws of life. Suppose, for example, that you would like a position that is more agreeable, more lucrative, shorter hours, etc. If you go forth to look for such a job, by all means start out with a feeling that you have something valuable to give an employer, and not go out to see how much you can get. If you give, the getting will automatically follow. Carry the light of God consciousness with you in seeking betterment of your position. And when you approach your prospective employer, let the light shine. Suppose, too, that you wish a better, more comfortable house in which to live. The very fact that you desire this change is proof positive that it is for you to have if you will meet the requirements. Many persons try to bring harmony into a home by getting a larger and better home, or by changing companions, by moving into another community. Pupil, that would help, would it not? Master, temporarily it might, but it would in no sense endure. To attempt to bring happiness or freedom into one's life through outward changes only is not wisdom, is not true art. Such is misuse of the divine materials. The change must occur within, and within first. It must first be established in mind, and firmly enthroned there, it is to be other than only temporarily effective. As long as a trend of thought remains the same, the result will be the same. The law of life is, to change an effect, the cause must be changed first. Cause leads, effects follow. Thought is the cause, conditions are the effects. Pupil, does one's longing for beautiful surroundings, for health and freedom, for a lovely picture and perfect balance, come from the great artist who has made all of nature? Is it he painting his ideal picture for us on the canvas of our individual minds? Master, yes, God is mind, life, intelligence, power, beauty, love, harmony, etc. If any of these things are desired by us, and they are, then surely the Creator of them all must have planted that thought seed in a mind. He must have whispered into that mental ear and that spiritual heart that the truth is yours. God has chosen you as a holy instrument through which to manifest all of His beautiful and wonderful qualities of life. It is the divine order and will that you should manifest that particular thing, that particular place in life. End of chapter. Chapter 4. God Consciousness versus Sense Consciousness. Pupil, that if our truly fine desires are the desires of God Himself, trying to manifest in and through us as individuals, in some particular way, why are there so many misfits in life? Why are there so few people who are really doing, just what they would like to do? Why are there so very, very few living in the life they truly wish to live? Why? Surely God can fulfill His own desires. Master, unless all things are possible to God, then nothing is possible to Him. God has projected each human forth from Himself, each of us possessing an individual mind, for the sole purpose of manifesting Himself and His glory through us. Verily, the mind of man is the Son of God. The Son has been given absolute liberty. Each can always make of his life, for a time at least, whatsoever he may choose. Man already possesses everything that God had to give him. Each person can make or mar his own picture, exactly as he wishes. By nature, man is free to draw from the ever-present parent mind anything and all things that he requires to fulfill his desires. If this is not true, then God's highest creation, man, is a mere nothing, an automatic something like a clock, which when once wound will run until it runs down. Man is, however, God's own idea in flesh. The intelligent life in man is man's divine Father. Man is already perfect and complete, is made of the same essence of his Father, God. There is only one reason why every mortal does not manifest and reproduce the life, love, and beauty which we see brought out in such radiance and perfection in all nature, manifested in nature to the extreme point where mechanical and automatic actions can bring them. But we as individuals have a law of being that is somewhat different in one way from that which governs the other creatures, that are the world we call nature. For us that are human, the only perfect reproduction of life, love, power, and beauty that we can ever know must come from liberty. That is to say, we have freedom of choice that is commensurate with that of the originating life spirit itself. In other words, we as individuals have the liberty of accepting or rejecting either good or evil, exactly as we may choose them, and the choice that we make results from the state of our consciousness. If we are God-conscious, we are God's. But if we are sense-conscious only, then we are creatures of darkness, of illness, of poverty, of loneliness, and all other things that are undesirable. Choose ye well, therefore, whom ye will serve, God-consciousness or sense-consciousness, which? Pupil, you have given us a powerful and illuminating dose here. Already we have a whole lesson. But I still do not see why God's highest creation, man, should ever reject any of the good things of life. Master, if man really understands the law of his own being, he never should reject the good things. But there are few who fully understand this law, which is a wide open door to absolute freedom. Most people believe that the law of their being, purposely spelled without capital letters, is a law of limitation rather than a law of absolute liberty. Man does not expect to find the starting point of the creative process reproduced in himself, so he looks to the mechanical side of things for the basis of his reasoning about life. Consequently, his reasoning leads him to the conclusion that life is limited because he has assumed limitations as his premise, and so logically he cannot escape from limitation in his conclusion. Here in this wonderful quotation from Troward, you have the whole story of limitation. Here Troward shows most clearly that all is a matter of consciousness. And so the tragedy results because man in his dense ignorance ridicules the idea of transcending the law of limitation, forgetting completely, if indeed he ever learned it, that the law can include all the lower laws so fully as to completely swallow them. Pupil, from what you say it would seem that man's only reason for knowing limitation of any kind is his own lack of understanding. Is man to blame because he does not know? Master, no man is to blame for what he does not know, but surely all persons will suffer because of not using what they do know. And they shall keep right on suffering until, like small children, they learn from experience. Pupil, it seems strange to say the least that each of us must learn to find his own fuller life in his own way. Why did not God compel his idea, man, to understand from birth that life is joy, and joy is freedom, etc.? Master, please think for just a minute. Would there be any freedom, any liberty in that kind of person? Such an individual should be a mere automation with no sense of liberty at all. God forbid that any of us, his children, become robots. Pupil, it seems to me that most people feel life is entirely made up of constant round of prosaic and homely activities which we are obliged to follow. To the shop or office we go. We toil and slave and go home again, all worn out and cranky. We sleep maybe, then arise to repeat it all again for years, until in God's mercy we die. There can be no real joy in that kind of life, but to most of mankind that is all. Still, this is not all, is it? Master, indeed, that is not all, not even for the darkest and most limited of people. However dark, spiritually and materially, a person may be, deep down in his soul there is a conviction that life holds his desires fulfilled somehow, somewhere, sometime. He feels also that if he only knew how he could find a way, some feel the real joy of liberty can come only after putting off the body at death. This is not the case. However, everything that life, God has to give, is here in our midst and right now. As we humans advance in knowledge, either from study or experience, or both, we overcome one law of limitation after another by finding the higher and greater law, of which all lower laws are but partial expression. At length we see clearly before us, as our ultimate goal, this truth. Nothing less than the perfect law of liberty, not liberty without law, which is anarchy, but liberty according to law. When man learns the law of his own being, he will specialize it in all his ways and will have found his true place. Thus will he bring into form all the desires of his heart. Then will he know the real art of living. Pupil, can anyone who will learn from life, either by study or experience, that the creative energy, with all that it has to give, is an ever-present, responsive quality of life? Then can one really materialize, really bring into outward form, his most secret and sacred desires? That would be the art of living, sure enough. Master, the law of life is changeless forever. It is always calling to you in these words or in ones like them. Come unto me, learn about me. Through me all things are possible unto you because we, you and I, are eternally one. I am life, I am creative. I am always responsive to the thoughts and emotions with which I am pressed by you. I am mind. The law of mind is my law. Because this is true, it is truth also that, as you think in your heart, so are you. Thinking gives form to the unformed life. Pupil, this is splendid, but again it is getting heavy. May we have another personal illustration of the adaptation of this principle to everyday life as people live it. This will help, I am sure. Master, all right, I am always happy to comply with such requests if they will really help you. I once knew a dentist, a very fine dentist and a good man. He confided to me one day that music was his very life, and not prosaic dentistry. He said that he was weary of being down in the mouth all the time. So I asked him, "You feel that you are not in your right place?" "I know that I am not," he replied. "Just why aren't you in your right groove?" I queried. "Because music will not yield me enough money to keep my family in anything like moderate comfort. I feel that marriage and a family are among life's deepest joys and greatest blessings. But music is like politics. One has to have lots of pull to get into the few places that will really pay for a good violinist." "Are you sure of that?" I asked. "Yes, quite." "Well, Mr. Dentist," I said, "I know a God who is all-intelligent, all-powerful, ever-present, ever-responsive, and forever creative. He is also the greatest of master artists, the real maestro. He lives forever deep within your soul. If you will try going into him there, if you will establish harmony there, and will know and understand the beauty which your music must express there, and if you will be content only with perfection there, and in your music, I know that you can and will reap all the reward that anyone can wish for in music, just as in any other profession, art or business." "Your words cause my hopes to soar," he said. "But how can one like me, one who knows very little about God, contact him?" Go within yourself. Go through or beneath the confusing, bewildering, disheartening past experience. Live wholly in and enjoy only the harmonious side of your nature, which is wise, beautiful, and most powerful in all ways. Then practice, 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 putting that inner beauty and harmony into vibration through the strings of your violin. But I am too old to take this up now. Not at all. Loving music as you do, you have kept up with your practice, have you not? then do try what I have told you. Try it with faith and love in your heart. Hold them there with a determination and pride which simply will not surrender. The dentist continued to find excuses, many of them, like so many people do, tragically enough. He did not have time, nor did he feel like it after long, hard days at the office. He should have to go some time to his family, must have some recreation, etc. But I did not hear him. I kept right on singing glowing word notes for him, tempting him to try hard, inspiring him with courage. When he stopped finding excuses and seemed really interested, he asked for the exact method to use. I told him the following steps. First, he must thoroughly make up his mind that his love for music, his deep passion for the expression of harmony, was no accident. He must know that it is nothing less than God himself persistently, relentlessly urging for expression through him. He should go carefully over and recite to himself the Lord's Prayer, quietly, but with much love and feeling, not less than twice every day, each night upon retiring and each morning when he first awakens. He should faithfully visualize himself playing, joyfully, harmoniously, enthusiastically playing to large and most appreciative audiences, receiving really handsome checks for his concerts. 4. After his periods of visualizing, he should faithfully use some affirmation that appealed to him, that would strengthen his faith when it sagged, that would feed his high resolve, which would fan his burning urge to a holy flame. 5. He should practice his music, striving always with all of his heart and soul to do much better with each rendition than he'd ever done before. Within less than 1 year, the dentist became the musician. He was making more than his potboiler concerts than he ever made at dentistry. Within another half year, he began a national concert tour. Within a few months, yielded him enough to go to Europe for additional study for 2 years, and to have his family with him over there. Since that time, he has done nothing professionally but play his violin. He has not, of course, accumulated a really great fortune, but he and his loved ones have all the good things of life that they wish. And this, combined with an abiding sense of happiness, constitutes true wealth for any person. Pupil, does this same plan apply to everyone and the same steps? Master, the same principles apply to all. The exact plan and the steps that lead to its fulfillment will vary a little, of course, with each specific case. But no matter what your big desire may be, your Father's dearest wish for you is the absolute fulfillment of that desire by you in partnership with Him. He always longs to give you any and all good things. His whole purpose in having created you was that He might express Himself through you. This is exactly why He created individuals, and this is why He does live in and through them. If we would have any of His gifts as our own, we need only to lift up our fallen consciousness to His holy belief, and then work in sheer joy and expectation towards the lovely vision we have in view. End of chapter. Chapter 5. Personal Intimacy with God. Pupil, please tell me a definite way to get closer to God, to push the little love and understanding that I have further into the great oneness until my limited vision is completely absorbed into the ultimate. Will you do this for me? Master, gladly. Since this is your own book, you may take all the time that you require, and at such intervals as you please to study it. Then study it still some more, and to practice it until you have really mastered it and made it a part of your very life. The very best way to sublimate your human self, your sense self, with all its limitations into the infinite, is to establish within yourself a personal intimacy with God. Pupil, but can this be done? Do you mean to say that we may actually be on terms of personal intimacy with God, as with a friend or other loved one? Such a thing seems too good to be true, too strange and mysterious to believe. Master, yes, this can be done. In fact, it is done in each of us at all times, whether or not we are aware of it. Remember always that each of us was made by and out of the same stuff as the ever-present, intelligent, creative life itself. Each of us was fashioned out of it itself, and each of us is it itself in physical form. This being so, it automatically follows that each of us is always in a most personal intimacy with God. God is our maker, our very life, our body, our thoughts, our desires, our everything. Pupil, then why are there any troubles at all in the world? Why is not the lot of every person peace, joy, and perfection at all times? Master, that question I have answered a number of times, in one form or another. But yet, once again, let me say, that is all a matter of each individual's own consciousness. Our thoughts make us what we are. The whole shape of our lives, and of what we call conditions, take their form from our most habitual thought and feeling. Don't ever lose sight of this outstandingly important fact. The originating creative power is unformed relative to your individual life until it flows through your thought. It is through our constant awareness of the truth that God is ever resident within us, is forever flowing through us as thought, that we are lifted right out of the old limited habits of judging everything from external appearances or from self-sense consciousness only. Pupil, but I still do not quite see how this awareness will change the whole life from darkness to light. Just how will it do it? Master, if you are constantly aware of the fact that you really are God Himself in miniature, that you are always on terms of personal intimacy with Him, as with your own self, then you will not have any longer any thoughts that are unlike Him. You will not think thoughts of limitation of any nature. You will not judge anything or anybody from the standpoint of sense consciousness. And when you have changed your thoughts and feelings to the point where you are habitually thinking only from the spiritual side of things, you will readily discover that to really know God is to be God. Then indeed are you in constant personal intimacy with God, and you will leave far behind you the dismal bogs of failure, lack, disease, loneliness, and despair. You will emerge into, and abide securely in, the green pastures of the fulfillment of your every treasured desire. Persist, persist, and yet again persist in your steady recognition of the truth that the actual purpose of the divine in having projected you into being from its own bosom was this and this only, that it might continually flow through you as consciousness, and that it might always specialize in you as health, wealth, peace, and joy. Through this realization, you lift your thought and feeling above limitations, and this is a solution to every problem. Yes, through the radiant gate of personal intimacy with God, we step into a new world in which all is life and liberty. Truly, God is ever present everywhere, all the time, loving, responsive, creative power. Pupil, since you often encourage us to use the Bible as a standard and a way shower, can you refer us to a place in the Bible in which we are given a means of establishing this conscious personal intimacy with God? Master, certainly. The Bible is replete with illustrations of this very principle. For instance, let's turn to St. Matthew, chapter 22, verses 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40, and note what Jesus, the greatest of all great teachers, says here. Let us study it and analyze it carefully. Here it is. Verse 36, Master, what is the great commandment in the law? This question, asked of Jesus by the lawyer, was one of vital importance, and then the answer that Jesus gave is the golden key that millions desire. Note the reply below. Verse 37 and 38. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. Kindly note very carefully and ponder deeply the three steps that are united in one through his use of the word love. The heart, the soul, and the mind constitute all of the spiritual being. Hence, if we really love God with all of our heart and soul and mind, we are in fact loving Him with all of our all. Is this not true? Indeed it is. Here then we have Jesus' own way, His own method of establishing within Himself personal intimacy with God. Verse 39 and 40 read thus, "And the second commandment is like unto it, like unto the first, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." Please observe here the tremendous importance that Jesus places upon loving our neighbors as we love our own selves. There are many who pay lip service to this divine injunction, and who profess that they really do love thy neighbors as themselves. But when it comes to the crucial test of dividing their possessions in love with a less fortunate neighbor, or of going to any extremity of trouble for him, their protestations of love for thy neighbor are far too often found to be merely only words, shallow and empty and vain. So remember this, in words without deeds to support them, there is no virtue. It is a fact that our neighbors, every last one of them, are as precious in the sight of God as we are. In truth, our neighbors are an integral part of ourselves in other forms. It is a fact also that we cannot really love God unless we love our neighbor. And it is a still greater truth that if we do love our neighbor as we love ourselves, we are loving God. God is one. Yet most of us make the tragic mistake of thinking that God is many, that our neighbor is one person and we another. The divine reality, however, is that all people, yes, every last one of the millions and millions on earth, are one body unified forever in God. This being so, it is impossible for us to help a neighbor, who is ourself, without also helping ourself. Neither can we criticize, condemn, or injure a neighbor, who is ourself, without doing ourselves greater harm than is done to the neighbor. In personal intimacy with God, there is, in reality, no neighbor and no self as two persons. As one separate and apart from each other, rather each of us is also all other persons, and all other persons are our own selves. When the dwellers on earth learn this all-important lesson that Jesus taught, and when all persons are obedient to this law, then we shall have the millennium here in our midst. Then will all of us be veritable angels of the one divine body. Pupil, this is a most beautiful and powerful illustration. In addition to studying about it and thinking about it, what else should we do about it? Master, the most important thing of all is to practice it, to live it. Otherwise, there is no virtue in it at all. If you can accept these words of Jesus' truth, then ally yourself with them in your thought and feelings and action. Then will your whole being be fed with spiritual manna. You will be given constant suggestions by the Spirit regarding the sanest and most fruitful methods of living your own personal life in true unity with God. Pupil, and will this not develop still more in us that great essential to which you gave such importance in Lesson 1, namely a good disposition? Master, indeed it will, and no age in all of history has ever more needed to learn and practice this great lesson of growth, development, and true enrichment than the people of today. Many read the truth, few assimilate it. Many hear the truth, few heed it. Many know the truth, few do it. That is exactly why there is a real master only at long and rare intervals. The price of mastery is really easy, but it is so much contrary to the sense consciousness out of which all selfishness is born, that few have the courage, the faith and the spiritual stamina, and the love to try it earnestly, or to stick through it through outward confusion, until it has been proved. Pupil, is there any other method you can think of that will help us to understand this great law still better? Are there any shortcuts, in the study I mean, not in the practice? Master, yes, there are shortcuts from which a truly observant and intelligent person may find this law actually fulfilled in beautiful harmony, and from which we humans may learn a great deal, if we will. Perhaps the greatest of these shortcuts to illumination is the one that is most widely distributed, and to which every last soul has access in one form or another, and with very little trouble if they sincerely wish to seek it out. I mean nature, of course. All of nature shows forth the glory of living in constant personal intimacy with God. By way of example of what I mean, let us briefly study the 4 seasons of the year and the reaction of nature to each. Spring in all of nature is the period of immortality expressed anew, and in wonderful splendor. It is the season of budding, of flowering, of mating, of generation and of regeneration, of all which are among the holiest of the functions of nature. And mark well how all the Dame Nature's children are always obedient to the urge of spring. So the sublime song of the Spirit. Only men are rebellious to the holy commands of the Spirit, and it appears quite obvious that only men sin. How long will it be before we who are human awaken to the true glory that is our divine birthright? In the realm of nature, summer is a time when fruits are formed, developed and ripened in fulfillment of the law of the Spirit. It is a season when seeds are formed within the fruits, so that with the coming of another spring, all of nature may obey again the great injunction found so often in the account of the creation, in Genesis namely, "Be ye fruitful and multiply, and fill the face of the earth with fruit." With the autumn comes the precious harvest, the time when the radiant promise that was given in the spring is fulfilled in form. Just as every promise of the Spirit to us will surely be manifest in form of our lives. And with the most bountiful harvest, if only we humans will learn to obey the Spirit without question, as do the fair children of nature, and cease our foolish rebellion, that is the one and only source of all of our afflictions. Then follows the winter, and nature rests from its labors of the spring, summer and fall, just as we also must have our periods of rest. But winter positively is not aging, or decadence or death, not in nature. It is the season of rest, of slumber only. But if you want to think that winter is a symbol of death, as some people insist upon doing, I will agree with you for a minute solely for the purpose of pointing out the fallacy of death, or the belief in death, as clearly revealed by nature. In winter, nature does appear dead, but is it dead? By no means. With the first few warm days of spring, the life which has been solely salmont in nature, but which has not perished because it does not perish, not ever, again responds. The buds, animated anew by the vitality of the spring, swell and burst, and the leaves and flowers that were hidden from view, but there nevertheless, came harmoniously, joyously forth in their beauty and glory to express immortality. As nature does, so may man do also, if he only will. If you would know true illumination, and the power and the glory that are born of it, go thou to nature, study her ways and be wise. Study her ways and really live. End of chapter. Chapter 6. Individuality. What is the truth about the individual and his individuality? Master, have you ever given thought to the matter of how you came into existence? Are you convinced that there was and is a definite purpose in the divine mind to account for your being here on earth? Or do you think that you create the purpose of your life by yourself, independently of all factors after you come into this world? Pupil, you ask questions that I scarcely know how to answer. These questions have perhaps been of mild and brief interest to me in the past, but I have never given them any real thought. I have let my mind wander as concerns these points. One time I would think that the creative parent mind does have a definite purpose in my being here, and that this being so there is no use in my trying to change it. But it would then occur to me that this conception of things would mean the predestination of the fundamentalists. So I would change my mind and decide that I must have some hand in terminating my mental and spiritual progress. Is this correct? Master, indeed you do have a hand in your self-development. You have a very great part in it. The life that is you as an individual came directly out of the great whole of intelligent life, or God, from out of its very own sacred heart center. Your very life is the Spirit's gift of its own self to you. Secondly, your divine did have a specific purpose in having made you, namely, that it might have a new form, a new center, through which it might operate as thought and feeling, and through which it might yet more fully enjoy itself in a particular way. This also is the Spirit's gift of its own self to you, but the manner in which you as an individual use these holy gifts is left entirely in your hands, without interference from the Spirit. You were given other holy boons. You were given initiative and selection. You were given absolute freedom of choice. The distance that you travel towards the goal of spiritual perfection in this earth life depends solely upon you, just as the degree of rapidity with which you may mentally grow is entirely up to you. Pupil, but are we not given certain divine urges or longings at all stages of our lives that will help us to know the right way to go? Are we not given these certain desires or impulses or stimuli? Master, certainly, and unless one follows these divine impulses, one is never really quite satisfied. One is always restless, always feels that some essential is lacking, that his right place eludes him. Your very individuality is an exact complement of the great whole, is a specialized action of all of life. The only difference in the life, the love, the beauty, or the power of the universal God, and of the individual man, as expressed through the universal and the individual, is a difference in scale. The quality of the two, which in reality are but one, is exactly the same. The very same Creator who made and directs the whole universe also made and will direct you, if you will let him do so, because he himself lives in you, as the life of you. His infinite creative power and intelligent love are the very same in you that you are in all other created things. Therefore, it is not just sentiment to say and feel and know, as did Jesus, the Father God and I are one. The Father in me, he doeth the work. If only we will develop a constant recognition of this most profound truth, we shall then really have an abiding sense of liberty in union, of liberty in conscious union with all of life. This is not just an idle but beautiful rhapsody. It is a simple but most powerful and illuminating statement of fact. Pupil, am I right then in believing that if I really think myself in an unshakable conviction that God is ever present in me, and that all of his creative power is mine to draw from at my own will and pleasure, I could accomplish anything and everything that I might wish, and could be and have whatever I might desire? Master, yes, you are right. The creative power of God in us is unformed with respects to what we may wish to accomplish until we ourselves give it definite direction with our thought and feeling. It is always responsive, remember, to any and all our thoughts and feelings. These things being true, and they are true, any person may be, do, and have whatsoever that one may desire, if, of course, one actively works in a corresponding direction. It is logic, it is purest gospel, that there is no other way than the one that life's true purpose in us is to be forever seeking to express itself through us as freedom. Remember always, I urge you, that our thoughts and feelings do become things, and that they determine the shape that the unformed substance of the Spirit takes in its living expression in our individual lives. It is, as Troward says, like flowing water through a pipe. The water always resumes the shape and the size of the pipe through which it is sent. It is like harnessed electricity, which always manifests in exact correspondence with the kind of instrument through which it passes as it works. In the light bulb, the electricity actually becomes light. In the doorbell, it rings the bell. In the refrigerator, it generates cold. In the stove, it becomes heat. It is the same electricity, the same power in every case. And the instrument through which it passes determines what the power is and what it does. Once a person truly grasps the real meaning of the Spirit's principles, then one realizes fully that we individuals are actually sent out from the very heart of God himself, in order that we may become and be new and perfect centers through which he may operate in joy and in ever-increasing joy. This and only this is the will of God towards us. Yes, the exalted mission of each of us is that we may be new instruments for divine expression. If we will to become that, and will make the necessary mental and physical effort to realize this truth, then we will know that we are filling our right place in life. We shall experience true and lasting happiness, then because we shall be doing the things we most enjoy doing. There will be an ever-present sense of growth in our lives also. Only a very few individuals have ever reached this extreme height in consciousness while on the earth plane. Still, it is possible to all. Because so few attain this exalted level, most people have the merest existence, one that is filled with seemingly continual and perplexing problems of one sort or another. Pupil, it seems to me there are many more people who are unhappy than there are happy ones. So many of my personal friends feel themselves to be misfits in life. I do not think that I know even one person, including myself, who is perfectly happy. If one has health, as some do, then that one may have financial troubles. If they do not have financial worries and no real physical worries, then they have family discord. And so on it goes until one wonders if there is such a thing as complete happiness in this phase of existence. Master, you are right, and the real reason for all of this unrest is this. These individuals have not recognized that their thoughts and feelings are the only instruments by which the all-creative energy can manifest in their lives. It is of no avail to blame Providence or other people for your troubles. No matter what form chaotic conditions take in your life, you alone are responsible for them, and you alone can rectify them through use of your inseparable contact with God. Once one learns through study and practice or through experience to allow the will of God, which is always good, to have free action in and through Him, then all bondage to conditions is over. Pupil, at the risk of appearing dull, may I ask yet again just how this can be done by each of us? Master, I have given you the answer a number of times in this book, but it is worth repeating in a little different form, for it is all-important item. Here is the answer yet again. 1. Mentally, go deep within your inmost self, your own divine inmost, and ask yourself, what does God really mean to me? What must the divine nature in me be like? 2. Once you have formed a definite and positive conclusion on these points, try to reproduce the same feeling all through your whole being. Keep trying, and you will succeed in doing it. It is worth the effort required 1,000,000 times over. 3. Do not let yourself be discouraged with this practice if you do not seem to get immediate results. Remember always that Troward says, it is the intention that counts. It is the intention which registers on the reproductive disk of creative life. 4. Another powerful help, to me personally at least, is to diligently use that affirmation from Troward which begins, my mind is a center of divine operation, etc. See Your Invisible Power or Troward's Door lectures. The Lord's Prayer is also an excellent aid, as I have repeatedly written here. 5. Try with all your concentrated purpose to live hourly in the feeling of the affirmation or the prayer. Do not let yourself slip and fall by indulging in what you may call justifiable impatience, for there is no such thing. Anger or jealousy or fear, and all like things, will cause you to slip also, for these things are unlike your idea of God or of God's thought. Pupil, that is a very tall order. Master, not when you realize constantly that it is the intention that counts. The more you keep your intention right, the less frequently will you slip in your practice of these principles, and soon your whole life shall have been altered until it is like your conception of God. Pupil, many people who seem to have a very good idea of Christian Science, divine science, unity, etc., try very hard for more money, better health, higher social position. Yet they do not seem to get very far. Why? Master, whether or not they are conscious of it, they are looking to the outside as the source from which these things shall come. But the origin of all good things is within. All good is within your own life stream, and this must be recognized. Our recognition of the within, the spiritual, as the true source of all good things, will give them form in the outer or physical world in which we live. Once the contact is made within and faithfully held, the things will automatically come to pass in the outer. The whole secret is this: we must know exactly who we are, what we are, and why we are. Knowing this, our contact with the source of all good is never interrupted. It is our task to take care of the inner things, and if we do, the outer things shall take care of themselves. Then shall we go forward, and only forward, happily, harmoniously, serenely accomplishing any and all good things that we may wish. End of chapter. Chapter 7. Personal Pointers on Success. Master, no one ever slides into real success without personal effort. It takes all one has to attain unto real success and to hold it. But by the very same law, each person has all that it takes. If you are willing to reach out for achievement and to use all of our faculties to that end, then unqualified, constant success is surely yours. It has been said that Napoleon never blundered into a victory. He always won his battles in his mind before he won them on the field. This is exactly what every successful person does. Pupil, what is the very first step on the high road to success? Master, the very first step is to decide definitely and positively what form of success you want. Henry Ford, for example, wished with all of his heart and soul to make better automobiles cheaper, cars that were within the financial reach of all persons. Thomas Edison wanted to provide various efficient electrical appliances at modern prices for the convenience and comfort of the world. Jesus the Christ had one outstanding desire ever present in his consciousness: to show the way for every human being to find the Father principle within himself, to show all how to find and know and trust the infinite divine power, which really will and does protect all, guide all, provide for all. Each of these men had a divine urge that burned within them, an all-consuming passion to do one thing better than it may have been done before. Because they knew exactly what the most wished to do, they did. Pupil, if one does not know exactly what line of endeavor to pursue, what is a good thing to look for in determining just what is best to do? Master, here is another most important essential to success. This will give you your clue. The more good a person can do for others with his product, his life, his work, or whatever it may be, the greater success will that person have. No one ever succeeded in any very great degree whose dominant motive was that of personal gain only. If one actually helps others, many others, to live happier, better, more successful lives, one need give little thought to the gain that will accompany that success. For if one does this, the gain to self cannot possibly be withheld. One's chief motive, then, in reaching out for success is not to see how may he help himself, but to see how greatly he may help many others. Pupil, these two steps are most helpful to me, but before taking other steps, may I ask you just what pitfalls I should look for, most when I first start on this road? Master, here are two of the most common snares, I think. 1. Never yet has success come, and never shall it come, to any person who simply wishes for it. Mere wishes are idle and utterly impotent, unless the wish is great enough to inspire one to immediate action. Yes, action, not wishes, is the big thing. 2. Keeping your mind centered on the big success that you are going to be will never bring it to pass. You must know yourself successful now. So long as one looks upon success as a future acquirement, just so long will success be postponed. Just so long will its attainment always remain future. From the very start, one must learn to back up the thought with the feeling, the absolute conviction that I am success now. Pupil, these are splendid too. Now I am ready for another step forward. Master, Since you have now firmly resolved to make a business of acquiring true success in accordance with life's immutable laws, you must throw your whole energy into making your mind a center for positive thoughts only, for constructive thoughts only. You are deliberately careful of the words you use. You are deliberately careful of your mental reaction to the words you may hear. For instance, if you hear people talking about a tornado, you should not let your thoughts dwell upon destruction, but rather upon tremendous power positively used. If you hear people talking about disease, you should inwardly know that while disease is a natural result of broken natural laws, it is not necessarily evil, and that in life as in life, all is good and perfect. In a word, it may be necessary to avoid all detours, even though they may appear easy and short. Pupil, what are some of these detours? How will they be marked? Master, all of them should be marked with lots of red lanterns, for certainly they are dangerous to one seeking success. Here are a few of them which you will recognize as questions that you have asked yourself, just as millions of other truth seekers, and yet they wonder why success always eludes them. 1. Well, why doesn't it come? 2. When will it come? 3. Maybe this is the way it will come. 4. Perhaps it is not God's will that I have this. Success does not come for the one who asks, well, why doesn't it come? Simply because he is asking why, rather than knowing that it now is. For the one who whimpers, when will it come? It shall never come so long as he asks when. What they wish now is, or else it never will be. And as concerns God's will for us, His will for us is anything good we may desire. Pupil, just why is it that if we wish success for ourselves only, for personal gain, we shall not be apt to get it? Master, here's an illustration. Suppose you went to your own personal banker and asked him for a loan of $100,000, knowing that he had that much and more to loan to you, that your worth justified a loan of that amount. No doubt his first question would be the one that bankers always ask first of anyone seeking a loan. Why do you want the money? Let's suppose you answered, oh, I wish to take a year's cruise on my yacht, doing nothing, just loafing, resting, sleeping, eating. I need the change, you see. Do you think he would let you have the money? No, not a soul. No more will the great universal banker, God, under like or similar circumstances. You must approach him with a really good idea, one which will bring good to many, not just to yourself. I know men who have millions and millions who began with no money, who began only with an idea. Their basic idea was so universal towards the production of good, they were able to secure from others all the money necessary to finance the beginning of their enterprise. The great secret of individual success is that the very same as that of national success that has made America the wealthiest land on earth, and is this: our men of affairs of great success have learned to share with all our people through benefiting all of the other people, either directly or indirectly, through dispensing higher quality goods at less cost, through sharing earnings more generously with employees, etc. They have learned that it is an absolute science, that giving to and sharing with many always has getting a natural result. Get your thought right. Capture an idea that will prove helpful to many. Then draw in confidence on the unlimited banker for all that you require. You will discover that you cannot keep money from gravitating towards you. Herein lies sure and continuing success. Pupil, may we have here, in conclusion, the gist of this whole matter of true success in summary form. This will facilitate ready reference by us who are students. Master, certainly you may have this. It may be said that the steps to success are 7 in number, and here they are. 1. Thoroughly make up your mind exactly what you want most right now. 2. Be certain that your desire has in it the element of good for many. Then ask your own inmost soul for the most perfect idea or ideas relative to your desire, ideas that will produce good for many. 3. Make a mental picture of your desire as fulfilled now, and now only. making the mental picture complete, vivid, alive with feeling. This is the meaning of Jesus' great statement as to ask believing that you already have. In the mental picture you actually do have, mentally, which is the realm of all true causation, your desire right now. Once you really get into the feeling that what you want already is yours, you will soon realize how quickly it grows into actual form. Keep out of your mind all fear habits of thought. Know that fear habits can be readily changed into faith habits. Fear and faith are the same, one being one end of the stick and the other end of the same stick. The fear end of the stick is a shovel and will surely dig the grave of success. The faith end is a jeweled crown ready to adorn the head of any who will wear it. 4. If necessary, compel yourself to implicitly believe that the same power that gives your desire in the beginning will also give you the ways and means of its triumphant fulfillment. 5. Meditate carefully at frequent intervals on the real purpose of your desire. This real purpose of the desire, or the thing, is the all-important spiritual prototype for the thing you want. Also go over the Lord's Prayer very carefully several times daily. It will help you much in meditating more profoundly, and will tune your mind in with the power of God. 6. Every night before going to sleep and every morning upon first awakening, make a solemn vow to live close to your God every conscious hour, to see only good in all, to entertain only good and constructive thoughts about everything and everyone. 7. Frequently mentally see yourself already enjoying your fulfilled desire. Do this every time you think of the desire, and especially at night and morning, just before sleeping and at once upon awakening. For at these periods the subconscious element of mind is especially agreeable to suggestion. In this way you do already have your desire perfectly fulfilled mentally, and if you persist in it, you shall surely have it soon in its physical form right in the midst of your life. For example, the great bridge that now spans the Golden Gate at San Francisco was first pictured complete and in use by many in the mind of its designer before it became an actual reality. But by mentally picturing the bridge as already completed and serving many people well, the designer drew from the whole universe the power necessary to have it actually built. These 7 points are the keys, or steps, to the attainment of real success in any line or endeavor. Mark them well, and above all other things, use them. They are truth. They work. End of chapter. Chapter 8. Instantaneous Healing. Master, it seems strange to one who has made real progress along God's great highway of truth, just how many mortals who are on the same journey will make detours that are altogether unnecessary, or will even turn and go in the opposite direction from their desired goal. For example, nearly everyone, it seems, is very much interested in a newly discovered disease, or in just disease as such, while the thing that all of us wish to know about is perfect health, and how to reach that rich experience that is spoken of in the Bible, which reads, "Health and a good estate of body are above all gold, and a strong body above infinite wealth." Of course, we all know that it is impossible to find the truth about health by holding our interest and attention on disease. Pupil, but we know that there is disease. Must we not reckon with this fact? Master, one who recognizes disease as a reality has thus made his own law about it, and for him disease is inevitable. If disease is what you think and believe, then disease is a fact for you. All bodily inharmony is first a thought and a belief. Consequently, its cure is from the mental side also. It has been said that the absolute spirit is like the air which carries odors both good and bad, but which remains forever untainted by them. In the absolute, all is health and harmony. It may carry the beliefs of mortals in disease about it, which it is yet never tainted by them. Pupil, but since the belief in disease is so widely prevalent, Is it not well for us to know how to handle disease or belief in disease from the spiritual standpoint? Master, it would be more scientific to know how to handle health, and we shall devote this lesson to healing, to living in conscious harmony with life's law. We shall start with the fine art of giving an effective spiritual treatment or mental treatment. There are a number of the most important points for the healer or practitioner to always remember and always practice in this respect. Pupil, which point is the most important of them all? Master, that is difficult to answer since all of them are vitally important, but one of them is this. The practitioner should have firmly fixed in mind the fact that there is but one mind and but one expression of this one mind, although it fills all space with its numberless manifestations. This awareness removes the line of demarcation between patient and healer. Another vital essential is this. If one hopes to be of any help to a patient, one must not give treatment for disease. That would surely intensify the disease. In giving a spiritual treatment, the practitioner should utterly dismiss all thoughts of disease and of personality from the mind. To hold the thought of disease would mean more disease. Rather, the healer should mentally see life whole, free, at peace, and in harmony through the power of the radiant Christ within. Pupil, but suppose the patient is right there in front of you at the time of the treatment, that he is ill and in great pain. How can the practitioner avoid seeing the ill condition? Master, if one is not sufficiently disciplined in mind to see through or beyond the condition, one should not attempt to be a healer, or else such a one should confine his efforts exclusively to absent mental treatments. To see or to believe in any condition that a patient may seem to have disarms a practitioner immediately and renders his efforts impotent in behalf of the patient. Pupil, are the absent mental treatments always just as effective as ones given face-to-face? Does not the distance of the patient from the source of treatment raise a barrier to the effectiveness of the treatments? Master, a well-trained and experienced practitioner is able to treat just as effectively absently as presently, and there are some who do better working absently. In spirit there is neither time nor space, and the distance of the patient from the healer makes no difference at all. You see, the first mental step that the practitioner takes is that of clearing his or her mind of the presence of anything except the one God Spirit. Thought is unbelievably fast in its transmission and can span the earth instantly, and it does not lose any of its power in the transmission. In giving an absent treatment, the healer should be positive that the thought sent forth reaches the recipient now and with infinite power. Pupil, why is it so vitally important to know that the truth for the patient is his now? If he is ill, it does not seem quite reasonable to me that he should be made whole right now. Master, nevertheless, it is either now or never. In the absolute, the only time there is eternal now. To it there is no past, nor is there any future. To it there is only the present. If the practitioner holds the thought that the patient will be all right, it will always will be for the patient, because the healer is postponing the healing until some future time. And there is no future known to the Spirit, as I have just said. Did Jesus ever say to any of those who were healed by him, "You will be healed, arise and go"? No, not ever. Always he spoke to them in the present tense. Always he told them something to the effect, "You are whole, go in peace." Pupil, just what are the mechanics of giving a mental treatment for one who is present personally with the practitioner? Master, the steps in giving a successful treatment under such circumstances are these. 1. Have the patient relax physically as completely as possible, all over, toes, ankles, knees, spine, shoulders, arms, hands, and even the eyelids, for the eyes should be closed in the silence. The whole body of the patient should be as limp as possible. The greater the physical relaxation you may induce on the part of the patient, the greater his receptivity to the mental treatment will be. 2. Have the patient empty his consciousness as completely as possible, trying to think of nothing at all insofar as this can be done, Have him try to make a vacuum of his mind, as it were. This complete relaxation of the conscious mind also induces a much greater receptivity. 3. The healer must completely remove the line of demarcation between the patient and the self. There are not two people present, not really, not patient and practitioner. The two are one, and the establishment of this fact firmly in the mind of the healer is of an untold importance. Remember that Mrs. Jones, practitioner, is not giving Mrs. Smith, patient, a mental treatment. As long as the one treating is aware of any sense of separation or distinction between patient and self, there will be little, if any, result achieved. 4. Once all sense of separation is really removed from the practitioner's consciousness, the actual treatment is given. The patient is now in a passive or receptive attitude, both mentally and physically. The healer is in an active or generating position, yet the two are one, the one person being the negative pole, the other the positive, and between them the healing current of life may now freely pass. Into the Absolute, the practitioner now projects a steady stream of positive, constructive, powerful thought energy, at the beginning of which process the patient's name is either silently or audibly called in order that the flow of spirit may be given definite direction. The receptive attitude of the patient picks up the flow of power, and so it is made his own. The affirmation the healer uses at the beginning of the silence may be said aloud once or twice, although this is not necessary. Into the bosom of the Spirit, into the fruitful silence, the practitioner thinks and dwells with intense concentration and feeling, yet without any sense of strain whatsoever. Pupil. Upon what thought does the healer dwell in the silence? Master. Upon the spiritual prototype for the organ that may be seen to be diseased, or for the thing or condition that may be desired. This spiritual prototype is yet another thing that is of vital importance. To dwell in thought upon anything physical, anything which has form, is to be on the plane of limitation, of secondary causation, of effect. But to think steadily upon the spiritual prototype is to mentally be in the realm of the Absolute, which is in the infinite, which its first cause or primary causation, which is the cause itself and not the effect. Pupil. To me this spiritual prototype, important though I'm sure it is the hardest thing in all of this study to get a hold of mentally, the most difficult point to really understand. May I have some helpful pointers on this matter? Master. That is true of many. In fact, for nearly all beginners in this study, perhaps the spiritual prototype is difficult for you because it is formless. Then, too, it may seem hard to understand because it is a new idea to you, one with which you are unfamiliar, of which you are not accustomed to thinking. Yet it is quite simple, once you know its nature. Here are some good rules to follow on this matter. 1. The spiritual prototype of anything is the thing itself in the most incipient state, is the actual origin of the thing in the universal mind. 2. To find the spiritual prototype for anything, it is only necessary to determine in your mind the purpose of the thing, whatever it may be. This is an infallible rule. Suppose, for example, one wished a good automobile and would like to know the spiritual prototype for it. One would mentally ask, exactly what is the purpose of an automobile? What is it for? What does it do? What do I really want with a car? The automobile is, of course, an instrument, a means of progress, of rapid, pleasant, harmonious progress. This being so, the spiritual prototype for an automobile is progress. At least this is what a car means to me. But in selecting a spiritual prototype for anything, each one should think out for himself just what the purpose of the thing is to you. Pupil, will you please give us a few other prototypes and show us how they are arrived at, with still a few more examples to serve as guides? I am sure that I shall then know how to form my own prototype for any particular thing desired or required. Master, very well. Here are a few more. Let us take the head, for example. Supposing that one had a belief in a violent headache. The head is the house of the brain, and the brain is the instrument of the mind. but in no sense the mind itself. What is the purpose of the mind? It is to know God, the capacity to know God. Can a capacity to know ever really ache or hurt, it being a formless thing? No, it cannot. The spiritual prototype for the head, then, as I see it, is the capacity to know God. Now, for a minute, let us consider the eyes. What is the purpose of the physical eye? It is the instrument of discernment, which is a purely spiritual factor. Discernment as such having no form of its own. The capacity of discernment is the spiritual prototype for the eyes, to me. Here are a few other spiritual prototypes for you, and in these that now follow I shall not explain for you just how I arrived at the conclusion. I shall name the particular organ or part of the body and the prototype for it as I see it, and give you the benefit of thinking out for yourself just why I have chosen this particular prototype for each specific thing. Teeth. Capacity to analyze and dissect God's ideas. Lungs. Capacity to know life as life. Heart. Capacity of love. Stomach. Capacity of understanding. Liver. Capacity of faith. Kidneys. Capacity of purity and cleanliness. The spiritual prototype, please remember always, is the purpose of the thing. Every physical thing has a purpose. Consequently, it has a spiritual correspondence. By letting your thoughts dwell upon the purpose of any physical organ or thing, you make direct and most powerful contact with the source of all things, with the first cause, which projected forth from itself all concentrated things. For as Troward told me, matter is only spirit slowed down to a point of visibility. Pupil. These examples will help me very much, I am sure. But now I am wondering just what is the best way to help others and ourselves forget human weakness, aches, pains, etc. It seems to me that most of us have the habit of dwelling too much in thought upon such negative things. Master, I find that the very best way to get away from the negative thought and feelings is this: to deliberately train the thought and feeling to travel along the road of our blessedness. Our every conscious moment does have a blessing in it, if only one would look carefully for it. Recognize it and be happy because of it. In looking for our blessings, it will help greatly to recall to mind the many joys we have experienced, as well as those we hope to experience. In these ways, we are able to forget the negative things of which the human side of us is so prone to accuse us. Pupil. May we have an experience or an illustration at this point, something out of your own experience? Master. Yes, here is an actual experience in which I had a part. In Los Angeles several years ago, a lady came to me with the problem of cancer, with which in harmony she had been told she was grievously afflicted. Her whole attention, it seemed to me, was rigidly held on the limitation the cancerous condition was causing her, or should soon cause her to know. She owned and operated a restaurant and was doing much of the work herself. Several doctors, she said, had told her there was no cure for her, that the disease had spread until an operation was not to be considered, that she must stay off her feet and spend most of her time, such as remained to her, in bed. This, she said, meant that she must go out of business, of course, and when she did that she would be in dire want, in fact an object of charity. With her mind filled with these negative thoughts of illness and lack, which were certain to come unless she could be healed, she came to see me. When I talked the matter over with her, I asked her to let me think things over for 3 days before giving her my decision about accepting her case for mental treatment. I asked for this delay in order that I might thoroughly check to see how much time I could allot to her, to see if I could arrange for all the time she would require. After 2 days of changing some appointments and postponing some others, which were not really urgent, I told the lady to come. My first question to her was this: do you absolutely believe what Jesus told his disciples, as recorded in Mark 10:27, and which reads as follows: "With man it is impossible, but not with God, for with God all things are possible"? She assured me positively that she did believe just that, but said that she found her own mind too untrained and chaotic to keep her thought and feeling, off what seemed to be the inevitable and hold it on the fact that God is the only power there is, that He is forever present, always agreeable to suggestion, eternally responsive and always creative. Hence she wished the help of Spirit through me. I told her that I should ask her to know with me hourly, continually, that her relation to God is always I am, and that whenever she thought or said I am, to remember that she was thinking or saying in reality, God is. I told her also that God created her out of Himself, for Himself, and that to Him and in Him she was forever complete, whole, and perfect. God is love, I told her, and asked her to always try to feel His great love surging through her. I quoted John 4:16 and 18 to her. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. I also asked her to know that God is life, intelligent, loving, harmonious, creative life, and asked her to hold her conscious thought and feeling on these things. But, she protested, you have not given me any affirmation for my cancer. Did you say my cancer? I asked her with such feeling and emphasis. Do you really want cancer, my dear? Are you determined to have it? If not, then why are you claiming it for your own by saying my cancer? Remember, thoughts are things. Oh no, she exclaimed. I see what you mean. Just listen to me. I must conquer this negative habit of thought. I assured her yet again that she was a divine child, that all of her needs were forever supplied through her recognition of them. I then told her to try to constantly keep in conscious thoughts that contained some quality of the following: belief, confidence, conviction, credit, honesty, patience, reliance, sincerity, and other ideas in which there was some of the essence of faith. I stressed the fact that by keeping these things in mind, her thought and feeling would have the essence of faith in them, and that she should soon form the habit of thinking in that way. It was my endeavor to get her to keep her mind off herself and on the things of the Spirit. I knew that if I could get her to do this habitually, God should take care of the rest of the matter. This lady assured me that she would try to do exactly as I had asked, although it seemed more plausible to doubt than to believe, that she could be in perfect health again after so much suffering, and the opinions of several doctors that she was doomed. Still again, I told her most positively that it is written, God is with you to save you. I asked her to remember that faith is alive, and that leads to more life, while doubt is dead and leads nowhere. The leading characteristic of faith is that it constantly flows and burns with constantly increasing brightness and expectancy. Faith always travels in one direction of understanding. Doubt is a blight upon every effort towards truth. This patient came to see me regularly every day for some 2 weeks, and her condition began to improve from the very start. Then she had only absent treatment at frequent intervals, with an occasional visit in person, for another 6 weeks. At the end of 2 months, she was entirely free from any evidence of cancer, free in body, in mind, and in affairs. Immediately, she began to build up physically, and when I saw her last, some 2 of 3 years after she first came to me, she was in robust health, prospering in business, and sure of her contact with the Spirit. Pupil. This illustration clears up in my mind, when I go back over it point by point, a number of ideas that were very hazy and uncertain to me. Thank you. I do know that doubts make one wretched from morning until night. Master, exactly so. And it would seem that after a while people who indulge in them would learn this fact and make an about-face and a forward march in the direction of faith. Faith is a brightly glowing light and lives within us. It has its source in the fountainhead of intuition. Its radiance is seen in the long shafts of splendor that lead one forever upward into the kingdom of the beautiful, the true, and the good. Pupil. If one does not have any faith, how does one get it? Master, one does not get faith. Every soul already has it. It has been yours forever. It is as much a part of you, of your divine being, as is your heart, your lungs, your mind. It is a gift as precious as life itself, and is born of life itself, forever innate in every living soul. It is true that some are less aware of faith than others through having neglected it, through having blighted it with doubts, fears, anxiety, etc. But the quality is still there, and by cultivation it will spring into fullness again. All that is required is this, that you exercise the faith that you already have for just a few weeks. Deliberately look for it, insist on seeing it, persist in using it. End of chapter. Chapter 9. Is desire a divine impulse? Master. Is desire a divine impulse? One hears this question asked in as many different forms, it seems, as there are humans. So frequently is it propounded and discussed, it seems to me that it will be helpful to answer it from Troward's standpoint. After you have studied and meditated upon it from his view, you will arrive at your own satisfactory conclusion. Pupil. I am glad that you have brought this up for us. I have often wished I knew just what God wanted me to do when I have been undecided about some move, perhaps a momentous decision. Master, the only way anyone can fully understand life's law of attraction is through seeing what it does under certain given conditions. In a tree it is growth, in an animal it is development, in all of nature it is evolution. From the lowest to the highest forms, all growth is prompted by the organized creature pushing forth in its own accomplishment. One cannot do otherwise than believe in the law of unfoldment, which is the hallowed desire of the all-originating life, to see itself more and more fully manifest. Since we as humans are branches of the one and only tree of life, this fact is also true of us. Pupil, may I ask a question, please? Master, certainly, any time. Pupil, do you mean that all growth is a result of desire for self-expression, and that all evolution is within the great creative mind? Master, just so, and each of us is the direct result of that desire. Therefore we should learn to trust our desires. There is but the one great desire, and practically all of our individual desires are reflections of that one. Man's desire, his real desire, is for good. No rational person would desire anything else for himself or another. Pupil, but many philosophies teach us that we must conquer, must overcome, must rise above all desire in order to be perfected. How do you answer this? Master, I stand fast in what has already been said herein. I hold fast to the firm conviction that our desires are divine impulses which stimulate us to growth and constant development. Without desires, we should be mere automatons, should have no wish to progress and grow. It is impossible for one to crush out all desires without ruining self, spirituality, physicality, morally and mentally. The desires, the longings we have are stimuli, our urges for expression from the holy citadel of God within ourselves. Pupil, is it true then that if we would draw into us any particular benefit, we have only to impress the desire for it firm upon the subconscious phase of mind, and hold it unwaveringly? Should we do this just as an impression of sound is made upon a phonograph disc before being reproduced? Should we do this knowing that said desire is instantly transmitted into the one great creative energy, which is always responsive, and that is sure to be manifested in our own physical world? Master, that is just what I mean. Let me give you another illustration. I know a very fine and very wise lady in Los Angeles, who after returning from marketing found that she had misplaced her car keys, and she had an urgent appointment awaiting her downtown within a little while. She had taken her groceries from the car into the kitchen. After looking around for the keys in every place that she could logically think of, she had still failed to find them. So she told herself, her subconscious phase of mind, I want those car keys. I must have them. Now where are they? You know. Almost immediately she had the desire to empty the bag of potatoes into the kitchen sink, but she ridiculed the idea and repeated her desire to find the keys. She did this 2 or 3 times, meanwhile keeping up her search for the keys, and every time she received back the feeling that she should empty the potato bag. It was her habit to let her maid empty the bags and put the purchases away, and the idea of emptying the potato bag seemed foolish anyway. But the impulse remained until urgently with her, although she could not see how her car keys could possibly be in the potato bag. So she did empty the bag into the sink, and almost instantly she heard a metallic sound. She looked, and behold, there were the missing keys. Pupil. Her deep desire to find the keys brought her the answer. It seems very simple. Master. And it is very simple once you know the responsiveness of the law of subjective mind. This lady knew the law. Pupil. If she really knew the law, why did she not recognize the answer to her desire the very first time she was impressed to empty the potato bag? Master. The lady to whom I refer is a very highly educated woman, a keen student of logic. While she truly does believe in the intuitive power of the mind to capture an idea from the infinite, the old race habit of giving reason first place had not been entirely uprooted from her consciousness. When intuition told her plainly to empty the bag, reason set upon the argument and told her that the impulse was foolish. The controversy between reason and intuition continued for several minutes. Then, because of her study of truth and her application of it, she was reminded that intuition, and not logic, is the true key of life. So she was impelled to do as she was bidden. When she did so, her desire had fulfillment as its correlative. Always desire and fulfillment are bound together as cause and effect through the universal law of attraction. Pupil. It still seems to me that a true student of truth should have thought, feeling, and desire so trained in the right direction that logic could not go wrong in its conclusion. Master. One does not change lifelong habits of reasoning overnight. Like everything else, complete change is a matter of growth. The fact that she did obey the small voice within, and that was her problem solved, are all that really mattered. In time, this lady, like all of us, will learn to instantly recognize the voice of intuition when it speaks, and will no longer question nor reason, will only obey. When we all reach that point, as we can and shall through faithful study and practice, there will be no problem in all of human experience that will fail to yield its answers. There is a lot of truth in the old saying, "Take care of the heart, and the head will take care of itself." Pupil. But is not the road to attainment of true wisdom a long, hard one? Master. It is long, all right, being infinite in scope, but it is not hard. It is like the story of the two men who were walking to Rome. One asked the other why he had chosen a road that was so full of stones. His companion replied that he had not been aware of any stones in the road, and suggested that they sit down by the roadside and take off their shoes. This they did, and the one who had been complaining found a pebble in his shoe, but there was nothing wrong with the road itself. Pupil. The road is then what each one makes of it for himself. Is that your idea? Master. That is right. The broad highway of truth is in fact, to me at least, the most interesting road in all of life. It takes time and interesting, happy effort to establish an unbroken consciousness of the perfect reciprocal action between the desire for expression as it exists in the creative energy and in the individual mind. It is true that by rightly establishing our relation to the great parent mind, we can gradually grow in any condition that we desire, provided, of course, that we first make ourselves, through our habitual mental attitude, the person who corresponds to those conditions. One can never get away from the law of correspondence. This science of correspondence, or of cause and effect, is as infallible as in mathematics, and as in mathematics its principles must be mastered before one can habitually feel, "My Father and I are one." Yes, our desires are our own, immortal selves seeking fuller expression, and one may soon prove to the doubting, bewildering self that one can absolutely trust the desires. Pupil. Somehow it is still a little difficult for me to accept the feeling that my desires are divine impulses, or the divine nature itself seeking expression through me. It seems to me that desire is selfish and often wrong, even bad for one. Master, did not Jesus say, "Seek and ye shall find"? Just why would anyone seek a thing? Pupil. Because he wanted that for which he was seeking. Master, very good. Are not wants and desires the same? Jesus also said, "Ask believing that you have and ye shall have." Why would one ask for a thing? Pupil, because he desires it and feels it would be good for him. Master, correct. Yet again the Master said, "Except ye become as a little child, ye shall in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven." If one desires to grow into the new life of liberty and joy, indeed one must become as a little child. Pupil, and just what did Jesus mean by that? Master, just what he said. Observe a child, any child, rich or poor. Its very impulse is desire, is to want something. All children are simply one continual incarnation of gimme and want to. Naturally, the child's wants are but the forerunner of the man and his wants, and in the adult desires are as natural as in the child. Pupil, this desire idea is truly a new one to me, but I like it. Master, you will learn to love and trust your desires as your spiritual understanding expands. Vitality, which is life, is born of desire, is the child of love. You will be amazed at the rapid progress you will make once you have really made up your own mind to trust your desires. The more you learn to trust your wants, the greater will be your flow of faith. Pupil, but must there not be a check somewhere on desires, a sorting of the good and the bad? All desires are not holy, are they? Master, one must be rational, of course. Troward writes in his Edinburgh Lectures that there is nothing wrong with the evidences of a healthy mind in a healthy body. This study presupposes that a sincere student of truth will not harbor evil desires, that his or her mentality is normal, the behavior normal. This being so, the desires of such a one should always be only natural, rational good, and if this is so, then the desires of that one are divine impulses. Let me suggest that you read the personal letter that Troward wrote to me, an exact copy of which is found in my book, Attaining Your Desires. Then you will see yet more clearly why you should trust your desires, recognizing as you do that desires are divine impulses. End of chapter. Chapter 10. Supreme Self-Freedom. Pupil. So, supreme self-freedom is our very wonderful subject for today, is it? I am sure that you shall prove to us that supreme self-freedom can be ours, that mind does rule the world. Master, you may always be quite certain that your mind rules your world, and you may always know that your individual world is a branch of the universal world. Your mind makes of your world a thing of beauty, peace, and absolute freedom, if only you will so. Pupil, I am convinced that this is true if only one could truly control one's mind, thoughts, and feelings at all times. I know that others have attained this mastery, this self-control, but somehow it does not seem to be for me as much as I desire it. Master, at one time in our lives, each of us thought the same thing about the multiplication tables, how difficult they seemed to us as a child, yet each of us mastered them by persistent effort. It is like that with absolute self-freedom. It is dormant within each soul, waiting only for us to call upon it, to arouse it, to recognize it, to give it our attention, our concentrated observation in every thought, our every feeling and every act. It is not difficult to have it if we make it first in our lives, just as a great scientist puts his science before everything else. In theory at least, all of us realize that we get only what we reach for, and reach for steadily. Pupil, is not Annette Kellerman, the great swimmer, an example of this? Was she not a cripple as a child, and considered hopelessly crippled? Master, yes, she was. But through insistent, persistent, determined, steady effort, she became the physically perfect woman, a model for the women of the world. Her science was a science of health, the science of physical beauty and perfection. There are many sciences, and each of us may select the one with which we are most in tune and pursue it to a dazzling goal. Pupil, but has not science boasted that it has disproved the Holy Bible? Master, it may be that some scientists make this boast, but it is not true. The fact of the matter is that science has confirmed the truth of the Bible. It might be said that science has written a new Bible for the thinking mind, merely by clarifying the old one. Science has made of the Bible the book supreme for those who are determined to live here and now. Science has proved that the Word of life, of the Spirit, is a living word of power. Truly, the heavens do declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. In reading your Bible, always substitute the word subconscious mind for the word Lord. Try this faithfully for a while and see what an astonishing growth you will make. Try this with such passages as Isaiah 40:31, Mark 29:30, Luke 18:29-30, and a host of others. Look about you. Look at the results achieved by those who have learned to love, to use, and to trust the mind. Strength, power, beauty, television, wire photography, microscope, telescope, spectroscopes, all of these, yes, all of these things are results from the great creative energy, whose progress, harmony, telephone, wireless airplanes' chief attributes are these. 1. It is ever present everywhere. 2. It is always agreeable to suggestion. 3. It is forever responsive. 4. It is eternally creative. This God energy, remember, manifests in the mind of man. In fact, is the mind of man. The 3 Bible references given above, and many others, teach us that if one puts the development of the divine spark within first, over all else, the divine in return will make the one first with it. Truly then, the best life has to give is the possession of that one. Pupil, am I right in believing that the precious promise of the Bible all hinge upon our making intelligent decisions, loving life, God, first in everything? And if I do, is everything I may desire sure to be mine? Master, that is right, if you make God first. If you really do make him first. That is to say, we should make it our first effort to know life's law and to live them. In this connection, please read over and over again, or better still, memorize letter perfect, the 22nd chapter of Job, beginning at verse 21, and continuing to the end of the chapter. The promises given there, the power, the freedom, the plenty, are yours exactly as promised. If you will take the time, the effort to become acquainted with the loving parent power, which is always able, and ever more than willing to do these things in you and through you. As you read, be sure to bear in mind constantly that the 21st verse is the key to all the others that follow it. The gist of this whole message is Job is this: we get out of life exactly what we put into it, plus much increase as interest on our faith. Some state this is a more homely way by which saying we get what we pay for and no more. Pupil, I have often wondered about this in connection with tithing. Is it true that tithing is a very old law which has the greatest power back of it? Master, indeed tithing is a law which has much power in it. I have tithed for 25 years, religiously so. The practice of tithing is a divine habit-forming virtue. People tithe because they recognize God and wish to develop their recognition and expectancy. Regular, systematic tithers are those who have formed the habit of counting their blessing. As a result, their blessings constantly increase. Did not Abraham give 1/10 of all of his to Melchizedek as a token of acknowledgement that his successes were from God? And when Jesus sent his disciples forth into the cities of Israel, he expressly forbade them to take with them any money or provisions. Why? Because he wished the people of those cities to recognize God in his servants and to support them with their tithe. As St. Paul said, the people who receive spiritual instruction shall administer some of their good to them who gives the instruction. It is a fact abundantly proved that the habit of tithing is a sure road to supreme self-freedom. Pupil, am I to understand that the habit of tithing would give me a consciousness of an abiding partnership with God? Because my tithing is to God and his servants. Is this correct? Does one tithe to God's cause in recognition, in loving recognition of divine guidance? Does one necessarily have to tithe to churches only? Master, no, one need not tithe to churches only. Some people tithe regularly to missionary organizations, some to charities, and many tithe to individuals who work in God's vineyards, irrespective of organizations or affiliations. The value of tithing lies in the establishment of the feeling of constant divine partnership. Tithing brings one into the high and fruitful consciousness of God and company, unlimited. If one keeps in conscious touch with the ever-present, responsive substance of life, by regularly returning to it some of the substance, funds, which it has placed in his stewardship, this constitutes a practical acknowledgement of blessings, and thus increases the blessings manyfold. The ancient Israelites proved this fact consistently, and for centuries the Jews had practiced tithing as they do today. The Mormons of today prove this law constantly also. When I was lecturing in Salt Lake City during the Depression, there was not a single Mormon or Mormon family on relief. The reason is obvious: they tithe. Pupil: I did not realize that tithing was so very great a stimulant for the steady inflow of supply, but now it seems to me that I would give one the same sense of security one has when the taxes are paid in full. Master, that is right. After all, your money is yourself. You are God's, your money is His also. Humanity exchanges its abilities, integrity, labor, etc. for money. In my 35 years as a practitioner, I have had thousands of people come to me for spiritual help for increased supply. But in all of that time, I have never had a solitary tither seek my help for financial increase. In fact, I have had very few tithers, one who religiously follow the practice, ever seek my help for any kind of harmony. Tithing does carry with it a wealth of blessing. Giving is worship. If one really worships God and considers Him one best business partner, one acknowledges His help by giving to His cause first. The average person gives a mere pittance to God. After they have paid everything else, that is not tithing in any sense. A tithe is not a tithe unless it is 10%. The tithe should be paid first, from the gross profit, and it should be tendered in genuine love, thanksgiving, and joy, if not in sheer abandon. Pupil: is tithing required by the intelligent, creative power in life? Surely God does not need the money or lands or cattle. Master: tithing is voluntary, yet it is required if one wishes a continual increase of blessing. It is a great joy to recognize God as a partner. To me, a partner means one of whom we are fond, with whom we labor for a common good, and with whom we happily share in love. In order to receive benefits from tithing, there must be joy in giving. To tithe grudgingly yields no blessing, or few at best. He who gives himself with his gifts feeds three: himself, his hungry neighbor, and me. Tithing brings with it an abiding sense of security, has within its loving bosom an abundance of success ideas, which when adapted brings health, wealth, and happiness. This is the law of tithing. Pupil: thank you for your lesson on tithing. I should like to hear much more about it, but are you going to tell us today how to reason ourselves into certainty? Master: this is hardly what I meant when we were discussing reasoning out of affirmation before trying to absorb it. For example, let us consider freedom. Freedom is joy. Joy is freedom. But it seems there are few who have either freedom or joy to any great extent. Many seem to be bound by miseries. Their every day is full of discord. To them work, all kinds of work, is disagreeable. To them most people are unbearable. Things that happen are awful. The weather is abominable. It rains when it shouldn't. When it should rain, it doesn't. They buy things, then regret it. They sell things and then are hurt because they didn't receive more money. If they don't go places, they feel slighted. If they do go places, they feel sure that they were snubbed. If they don't have things, they are despondent. If they do have things, they are not what they want, etc., etc. Pupil: heavens, is this the average person you are describing? Master: no, I am just giving you an intimate glimpse of a person in bondage, of one who have not trained the mind to hold only thoughts of absolute freedom. Perfect joy and freedom are yours now. Take them and make them yours. Pupil, how may one enter upon these joy thoughts at will? Master, that is the place for the affirmation. Take, for example, the thought, the very best life has to give is mine now. Reason about this for a minute. Why is it true? Because life or God made me out of himself and lives in me. The very life of me is God. Life is happy. Life is free. Life is health. Life is wealth. Life is all good. Pupil, I can see this, but suppose that when you have satisfied yourself, this is true, some member of the family or some friend jabs you with a very unkind remark. What then? Are you supposed to laugh that off? Master, if you really are conscious that the best life has to give you is yours, you will instantly realize at all times that you are not supposed to try to live for another. You have all you can do to keep the stream of joy flowing through your own consciousness. When I first began my study with Troward, he cautioned me every day, watch your thoughts and feelings. They do take form, you know. And he really got that great truth across to my consciousness. When I went to Rouen Manor to study with him, I had been accustomed to a personal maid all my life. I took my maid with me when I went to Troward. There was not one modern convenience where I lived in Rouen Manor, and none could be obtained thereabouts. We had been there just a month when Marie came to me in tears and told me she was heartbroken to leave me, but she could not stay in that awful place any longer. She just must go back to Paris. She was too lonely, etc. Of course my thoughts were, if Marie goes, what shall I do? Here we are miles from anywhere, with no conveniences of any kind. What does this mean? Why should this disaster come to me now, of all times, when I am really trying to know God? Just when my thoughts reached that station and were gathering momentum, Troward's warning, watch your thoughts, came to my mind, and I stopped right there. I began to use the will exercise he had taught me. I also used affirmations he had given me to hold my thoughts where the creative power in thoughts and feelings could produce what I wanted. What I wanted most was freedom to continue my study. I deliberately held my thoughts in the right place. Only 2 days later, the lady from whom I rented our rooms came to me and said she believed that Marie had been trying to tell her that she was leaving me. Marie was French and spoke no English, and that she wished that she could find me another good personal maid before she went to Paris. I told the lady this was the case. She said that her daughter was coming home from London in just a few days, that her daughter had worked there for several years as a good personal maid, and that she felt sure the girl would be happy to work for me in that capacity. Marie left after teaching the other girl just how I wished things done, and the new maid was as satisfactory as the first. In this episode, I had my first good lesson in knowing that I must watch my thoughts, and that they do become things. Pupil, you have said that your favorite affirmation is the Lord's Prayer. Please show us how you would reason this out in order to better understand it before using it, part of it at least. Master, very well. The first 2 words of that prayer carry a tremendous power, if they are thought over or spoken with much feeling. What does Our Father suggest? Our Father, our very own Father. When you were a child, what was your idea of your Father? Your idea of him may have been exaggerated, but you believed him to be rich beyond all words, influential, kind, loving, good, always ready to give, to help, to comfort, to make you happy, and to see that you had everything that your little heart could desire. Then try to feel yourself as a child of God, with all the enthusiasm of a child. Know that you are so like him that he adores you, guides you, shields you, protects you, gives you everything he has to give in generous quantity, that you are and that you have his all. Do this with the whole prayer. Think about it all, understand and assimilate it all, then use it all. If you will do your part, you will find that the Father principle in life is always responsive. Your objective quality of mind may not know what is best for you, because it can only realize the objective and limited side of life. But the Father in you, He knows. Ask Him. Be guided by Him. Your real desires are but reflections from Him which shine through and register in your mind. Pupil, would it not be a good idea for us to frequently refer back to the lesson on desire, a divine impulse, when there is any confusion of mind about desires? Master, yes, that is recommended. In fact, I trust that you will frequently review all the lessons of this course. And I devoutly wish that you would earnestly try to make God first in your heart and mind and soul, and daily and hourly life. If you will, it will mean for you a life of supreme self-freedom. And truly, you will make of yourself a reflection of God's own idea, who is the perfected you. To this end, I recommend the following, all of which I urge you to memorize, letter perfect. I also urge you to use and yet again use these points in affirmation, faithfully and regularly. Here they are. For daily, systematic, loving use, your hourly effort should be that of fully realizing your true place in the great plan of life. Just what is this true place for each individual? It is, as Troward taught me, the following three things. 1. Worship of God alone. 2. The absolute equality of all individuals. 3. Complete control of all else. Affirmations. 1. I am intelligent, loving spirit, living in creative love and power. In Him do I live and move and have my whole being. 2. I am a specialized part of God's own self-manifestation. God is specialized in me. Therefore, I am perfect harmony. 3. I am direct knowledge of all truth. I am perfect intuition. I am spiritual perception at its fullness. There is but one wisdom. Therefore, I am perfect wisdom. 4. My mind is a center of divine operation. Therefore, I am always thinking good thoughts, speaking only constructive words. Time is eternal. God is the only giver. His loving intelligence is continually working in and through me. Hence, I am ever working correctly. I am thinking the right thoughts, in the right way at the right time, towards the right result. God's work in and through me is always well done. 5. I am specialized spirit. I am always receiving rich, powerful inspiration from the great universal parent spirit. Divine intelligence is always thinking new, fresh, clear ideas through me, ideas far beyond any I've ever known before. My prayers are the outflow of the great oversoul of the universe. They go forth in His name, and always they accomplish that which I send them. God is glorifying Himself in and through me now. End of chapter. Chapter 11. Exercises for Health. 1. Breathing, bathing, and short essay profitable exercises for health. Note, these exercises are given as a stimulant to your capacity, both mental and physical. Mind and body are one. When both body and mind are strong, happiness and success usually follow, especially if one adds to them mental and bodily efficiency. Correct breathing is one of nature's most powerful methods of building a powerful body, a perfect body. Let us begin now to breathe correctly and profitably. If these exercises are taken as intended, there will not be any strain. The first exercise is this. Upon arising in the morning, first drink 2 or 3 glasses of water. The effect will be better if you will take the water just as hot as you can bear to drink it, with the juice of 1/2 a lemon in it. Then stand erect or else lie flat on the floor. Exhale completely. Whether standing or lying on floor, bend knees slightly. As you exhale, contract both the chest and the diaphragm, pushing the latter out and down as far as possible without causing strain. Naturally, this will extend the abdomen. Then, without lifting your chest, pull abdomen in as far as you can. Then, without any attempt at correct breathing, push abdomen out and in rapidly at least 12 times. After you have mastered the above exercise for the abdomen and diaphragm, take the next exercise, for not more than 2 minutes each time. This exercise is stand erect or lie flat on the back. Exhale completely, contracting your chest. Then slowly inhale through the nostrils. Try not to allow chest to move. Let the diaphragm push the abdomen down. Then hold the breath for 3 or 4 seconds. Exhale slowly. Then forget all about the abdomen and diaphragm and inhale deeply, letting your breath lift chest walls up and out to their fullest capacity. Hold breath a few seconds and exhale all the breath. If you will practice these 2 simple exercises each morning for 10 days, you will note a greater improvement in physical condition and vitality. The head and mind will be clear, and you will have a real zest for work. No doubt you know that the right kind of bath is a splendid nerve tonic, as well as the most important point in attaining physical and mental perfection. When bathing for cleanliness, the water should be of blood temperature, never hot or cold. After the cleansing bath, fill the wash basin with cold water. Scoop up 2 handfuls and apply to the forehead, and rub up and down the face. Dip hands in cold water again and shake off all surplus water. Then rub off balance between the ears. Repeat process on back and neck. These things soothe and strengthen nerves. 2. A certain way of relief for constipation is this. First, meditate on the perfect and harmonious action of life. In nature, one does not find ever inaction or overaction. Think over how the life in your body regulates the flow of blood, the action of the muscles, both voluntary and involuntary, and how all these things are done in perfect harmony. For a regulatory exercise in relieving constipation, the following is splendid. First, as soon as you arise in the morning, drink 2 glasses of hot water, then stand or lie on the back on floor. Breathe deeply. As you inhale, extend the abdomen and contract it as you exhale, contracting it all you possibly can. Do this without letting chest rise at all. Do the exercise rapidly, vigorously, always inhaling through the nostril and exhaling through the mouth. Take about 8 seconds for each complete breath. Do this for a minute or 2, then use another minute to recover normal breathing. A second exercise is recommended, and it is better if taken in connection with the one just given. It is this. Again, stand erect or lie on the back, preferably the latter. Draw first the right knee and then the left up to the chest as snug as possible. Inhale deeply as you put foot down to the floor and exhale as you draw knee down to the chest. Do this exercise rapidly, vigorously for 1 minute. After the exercise, try to get into the feeling of gratuity as you are able to consciously tune in with the harmonious action of life. If you keep thinking deeply on the fact that all of the qualities of life must be present anywhere and everywhere that life is, the feeling of oneness will come and you will enjoy the thrill of it. The very best there is yours now, and the perfect movement is manifesting now. 3. How to retain youth and to banish gray hairs and wrinkles if they offend you. Think, know, feel. Be thankful for the fact that life as life has no age and yet is ageless. Give this fact a little profound thought every day. Soon you will get the deep and abiding awareness of it. In your mind's eye and in memory, try to recall how you felt about certain things when you were 20, how you looked then and acted, and bubbled over with energy. Ask yourself if your point of view about life in general has changed radically, or if you have simply forgotten how to live life and love it as you did then. The emotions, the fine understanding, the zest for activity, as you had then in youth, have not gilded off without leaving a trace in development of your advancing years. Try to give yourself a careful going over mentally each day, and live for a while each day the experiences of your youth, bringing them back into your feeling. Perhaps you say, "Oh, but youth is so foolish." That may be so, but remember always that it does things. Try to weed out and destroy the doubts of your advancing years. Try to prune out yourself, out of your thought and feeling, your tendency towards being over-conservative. Old age is an ossified idea. Being over-conservative and opposed to progress and change are the things that make one old and usually impotent. Your youth was all right. Live it again. Live it in feeling and keep the feeling boistered temporarily by making mental pictures of your happy, cocksure self as you were at 20. See your face, figure, and hair as they were then. And each day do the following exercise for the banishment of gray hair. Vigorously rub the whole scalp, from the nape of the neck up over the crown to the hairline of the forehead, using Glover's manicure. This liquid is not for dogs only, but is an excellent tonic and stimulant for human hair. Rub the liquid well into the scalp. The gray hair may fall out for a while after you have done this exercise faithfully for several days, but keep it up and new hair will come in with the natural color of the hair of your youth. Yes, mentally go back to 20 and balance its vitality with your present wisdom. Know, with all of your heart and soul, and all of your emotional self, that life as life is manifesting in you in a particular way in order that it may find new avenues for expressing itself as the joy of living. Make an hourly effort to keep in your consciousness your joys only. Make them register. Deliberately be happy, and your body will respond to it in every way. It will also help, particularly for the ladies, to sit in front of the vanity a half hour each day, seeing yourself not as you are now if aged, but as you were in youth. Do this with deep concentration, deepest feeling, affirming something like, I am life, I am youth, eternal youth. The important thing, however, is to see yourself as youth, to feel youth, to know that you are youth. Soon you will find a decided improvement setting in. Thought is always creative. Sooner you will look younger. Soon you will feel younger. Soon you will be younger. Not in years, of course, but years do not make aging. Some are old at 25. Others are young at 80. It is flexibility of mind, a keen enjoyment of living, that make for elasticity of muscle and for youth. 4. A method of attracting money. Meditate on the riches of life as they really are. All that we can see or think of nature shows us only abundance. Every growing thing is amply provided for. The grass and trees and other growing things do not know poverty. In the soil, in the air, in the sunshine, there is an abundance of nourishment for all. Think about this great fundamental truth because it applies to you also. Wherever you may be, whatever your station in life may be, the Creator of all life has just as amply provided for you as He has for the grass, the birds, all of nature. It is not His fault that all do not express or manifest this bounty. People are as poor, or will soon be as rich, as they accept for themselves in the consciousness. Everything that your individual nature may require has already been provided for you by the Creator. One has only to accept it, first in consciousness, then in fact. Your steady recognition of this fact forms a veritable magnet in the mind which will attract every requirement to you, not as money that will drop into your lap without effort, but as ideas, which when acted upon will yield an abundant harvest. Try this. Begin right now to take the time, 2 or 3 times daily, to focus your thought at the base of the brain. Spirit of God, life, I am grateful to you for the abundance that is mine now. Any other good affirmation that may appeal to you, one that you compose for yourself perhaps, will do provided the use of it lifts your thoughts and feelings into certainty that abundance is yours now. The more completely you can flood your mind, your consciousness, with the recognition of life's abundance, for you as well as for all, the more quickly your thought and feeling will manifest in form. Rich ideas will come to you intuitively, particularly if you impress that riches are yours now upon your mind just before going to sleep. Any good idea, if acted upon with wisdom and energy, will yield great abundance for anyone who apprehends it and works in faith towards its fulfillment. 5. The value of sleep and a new method of inducing it. Sleep is nature's restorative for tired tissues and often is found to be the only effective refresher of the body machine. The exact amount of sleep required varies with different individuals, much depending upon how fatigued a person is when retiring. If one feels the need of relaxation and sleep, and yet cannot easily go to sleep, try the following method, which you may have read in my book, The Healing Power is Life. It is this: sit nude on the edge of your bathtub, feet outside the tub. Take a fountain syringe and fill it with water that is blood warm, not hot. Place the end of the tube at the nape of the neck and let the warm water trickle down your spine until you begin to feel relaxed. Then go to bed quickly, comfortable, warm, and relaxed. Another aid towards relaxation, and relaxation, if complete, is sure to induce sleep in a weary person, is this: lying in bed on the back, deliberately send the message down to your toes firmly. Relax. Continue sending the message until the toes do spread and relax. Then relax the ankles in the same manner, also the knees, then the base of the spine, and the spine itself to base of head, also hands and arms. As a rule, one will never get this far with the relaxation exercise. Almost invariably, one will slip off into a deep, restful sleep before having consciously relaxed more than half the body. Upon awakening, if you feel recuperated, don't force yourself to remain in bed, whatever the hour. Get up and do something that you are interested in doing. Be sure the room you sleep is always well ventilated. Almost all people breathe more deeply when sleeping than when awake. Unless exercising quite freely, do not eat a big meal just before retiring. If you will give this method of inducing sleep a fair trial, you will find it very effective in inducing refreshing sleep that will have a real recuperative value. End of chapter. Chapter 12. How to Live Life and Love It. Master, if you are anxious and uncertain about the future because of the fast-moving and extremely chaotic changes now going on all about you, here is a lesson that will help you find your true self and to stay at peace. Once we really find the true self, we are in tune with life as it is. Then we can live life and love it. Life really is glorious once one knows how to live it. Try to imagine for a few minutes that you know a secret which opens all the closed doors of seeming limitations, and that you can step into a new world in which all is life and liberty. In order to enter this fair paradise of freedom, the mind must be trained to choose carefully the emotional trend of thinking. Pupil, do you mean that only those who have developed their different mental faculties through study and practice of truth can enter this kingdom? Master, that is exactly what I mean, since thoughts alone are creative. Those who have learned the value of the trained will, imagination, intuition, and who live accordingly can really feel secure. The tendency of thought, the habits of thought, determine with precision one's outward affairs. So as you start to travel this road which leads to absolute liberty in all things, it is necessary to leave behind all excess baggage, such as self-pity, intolerance, criticism, fear, despondency, feeling of superiority, and all other negative and destructive occupants of your mental house. Take all these and put them in a secure bag, then tie a string of resolute determination tightly around them and dump them on a trash pile. Cover the worthless bag of destructive evils with oil and set it on fire. Then are you really ready to start on your journey? Pupil, it would seem that one is only able to go places on this road by developing self-control. Is that so necessary? Master, yes, vitally necessary. However true and powerful the truth may be, there must be a method of application of the principle of the individual. The best and surest method of manifesting the truth that God and man are one, and that God lives in and thinks through each of us, is to deliberately cultivate self-control with its consequently serenity of mind. In your endeavor to use this great power for your individual purpose in the affairs of your hourly life, you must be able to catch your thought the minute they begin to wander into doubts, fears, condemnations, criticism, etc., and turn it in the direction you do wish to go. Thus will you build certainty into your soul and body, and the possession of certainty within means certainty in all things good in the affairs. Pupil, You make it seem that my disposition and self-control need much of my attention. I will admit that I am not patient, and of course I am intolerant, but only with those who deserve it. Only with those who do not seem to try to do their part do I lose my temper. Master, it is not my intention to be personal about your disposition, but I do say earnestly that every person who wishes to enjoy the blessings of true freedom must learn careful thought selection, which means absolute thought control or self-control. In this way, you will very soon entertain only the thought guests you admire and enjoy. The uncouth, the grouchy, the selfish, the condemnatory, the suspicious, the tramp thoughts, all of whom will try to make a convenience of your mental domain, must be turned out of your mind. The best way to do this is to put your whole feeling into an affirmation, whatever one appeals to you at the moment. Hold steadily to that thought and feeling until everything unlike it is out of your mind. Then lock your mental doors and use your will to keep out thoughts you have dismissed from your presence. Pupil, this making my mind do my new will is not going to be easy. I will practically have to make over completely my habitual mental processes. Master, no, it will not be easy, but the goal the discipline will lead you to is worth 1,000 times the effort required, however much effort that may be. If you will mentally stick tight to your resolve to make your mind a conscious center of divine operation, even for 1 week, seeing yourself growing steadily into that which you wish to become, you will be amazed at your own growth and the genuine interest you have in everything around you. Also, you will discover many, many wonderful things about yourself that you never knew before. Once you focus your attention and your intention on the intelligent life within you, and try to reproduce it in your own self, you will begin to get results that will seem almost phenomenal to you, and quite quickly. Keep your consciousness focused on the fact that the spirit of life has no fears, no anxiety, and soon your feeling will correspond with it. Just try this, say for 2 weeks, without slipping. Then ask yourself if you would go back to your old estate, if you could. Pupil, is one apt to be hypnotized and thus hindered in progress by the thoughts of others about one? Sometimes I seem to be making real progress when suddenly, and for no apparent reason, there is an almost uncontrollable impulse and feeling of, oh, what's the use? I am like a ship without a rudder, trying to plow through some invisible and invincible force, and getting nowhere fast, as the saying is. At best, these experiences are long detours off the main road. What causes these episodes? Master, you gave it its right name in the beginning. It is hypnotism, but as a rule it is self-hypnotism, almost unconsciously done because of the old habits of thought, and it comes as a result of your letting things other than your aim hold your attention. Your efforts to control your thoughts should be steady, continuous, with no unguarded moments. Mere spasmodic efforts, however, strongly indulged in at the time of their occurrence to you, will never take you very far on the road to the no goal you have set. Before you study any further in these lessons, yes, right now, make up your mind positively that you are entering upon the study to win, and that you will make an earnest, steady, continuous effort to do so. My own personal remedy for overcoming any tendency to slip back into the old rut of wrong thinking, and I assure you that I have always found it the most potent and sure panacea, is, believe it or not, that wonderful thing, deliriously called old-fashioned and out of date by some, the Lord's Prayer. Go carefully over the Lord's Prayer every day. If you do not already know it thoroughly, memorize it, so that you can repeat it anywhere, anytime, silently if you like. Use it, repeat it carefully, slowly, and with much depth of feeling, as often as there is the least tendency to slip off your path. After you have finished with your reading or repetition of the prayer, then take up your mental picture again, mentally seeing, feeling, believing, knowing that you are already in possession of whatever it is that you want. This is what Jesus meant when he said for us to always ask believing that ye already have, and ye shall have. If you will do these things, very soon you will find that you are on the road to freedom and joy, and it will constantly grow easier for you to stay on the highway without so many detours. Pupil, just now I should like very much to have more money. In fact, I must have it. Do you mean that I can attract the money I need by living with the Lord's Prayer for, say, half an hour every morning and every night? Just precipitate that money right out of the very thin air? That seems incredible. Master, what you ask is incredible, and you are not getting my real meaning. The finest statement of the law of life ever uttered is, in my opinion, that wonderful, wonderful statement of Jesus, namely, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all things will be added unto you." But please note that first you must seek the kingdom, must make an honest effort to make your mind a center of divine operation only, and for its own sake, and not from any ulterior motive. Then will all things be added unto you. What happens to you through the steady, persistent use of the Lord's Prayer, as we are discussing it, is this. With the constant change in your mental attitude as you progress, you are developing more and more strength and spiritual power. This self-mastery you are steadily developing is the growth of divine wisdom, power, and beauty within you. Naturally then, your whole outside world will gradually change to correspond to your new inside world, because your most habitual thought takes outward form. Delightful changes will come into the circle of your individual world. Your thought and feeling will attract corresponding shapes, and you will feel much encouraged to go on and on and on into more and more joy and freedom. End of chapter. Chapter 13. Imagination and Intuition. Master, today we shall discuss the great power we call imagination. Pupil, may I ask just what imagination is? I have heard you often speak of it as our spiritual airplane, and say that it wings us. But just what is it? Master, no mortal can possibly answer that question. With all of our scientific research, no one has found any rational clue as to the source of this great power, outside of God or Spirit. Nor has anyone been able to determine how far the use of imagination is able to carry one. It is infinite. It is the mystery of mysteries, and it might be compared to electricity in this respect. Yet we know it does exist, and that its power for good is inconceivable, if used constructively, correctly. What we should do is to inquire into its usefulness to us. Every normal person is equipped with it to some degree, and like the will, the imagination can be developed. If rightly understood and correctly used, it will perform seeming miracles. Pupil, but why do you call imagination the spiritual airplane? Master, because imagination, correctly used, can and will lift one, as if on wings, above and beyond all limitation, above one's low, narrow views of life, into a cloudless domain of true perspective. Imagination gives one clear vision of possibility in your life, which you have never been able to see before. Then will you realize that it takes determination and effort to achieve success. You also know that you can, with the imagination, tap the source of unlimited possibility and intelligent energy. In a flash, that mysterious winged thing called imagination shows you where all the riches of life are to be found. Pupil, suppose one feels weak, obscure, poor, that you know your ideas are good, but that you lack the money or health to carry them into effect. What can imagination do about these things? Master, imagination will reveal that strength and power and means are to be found within your divine self, and that a better and better acquaintance with, and a more frequent use of, the God powers within is certain to lead to success of any time. Pupil, can imagination lift one to great spiritual heights, or does it pertain more to material success? Master, Jesus the Nazarene lifted himself to the exalted Christhood through understanding and using his powers of imagination. Is that not reaching the heights spiritually? Pupil, is it the imagination that opens a door for limitless good to enter? Master, no, not correctly speaking. It is intuition, a feminine or soul quality which first captures an idea from the infinite and passes it on to the imagination. Imagination raises one to a place in consciousness where all things are not only possible but are present spiritual facts. Look all about at the ones who have risen above every conceivable handicap to very great success. Let us take Louis Pasteur, for example. He did not have any better mentality, or more strength, or more money than any other ordinary Frenchman, and he was just as obscure as the lowest of them. His mental tools by nature were no sharper than yours are. But that strange and mysterious thing called imagination was very active in him and soared far beyond his scant equipment and early hardships into new realms of wisdom. Many times he was not sure, but he imagined, and because he imagined, he discovered. And because he discovered, he wrought miraculous cures. To this day, his wisdom prevents disease and death in countless millions. Truly, Pasteur was a saint. The same is true of Pericles. People said he was lucky. Envious and lazy people always say this of anyone that succeeds. But the cures of Pericles were not luck. They were the result of his imagination and industry. Jesus intimately acquainted himself with God through the use of his fertile imagination, and through use of the same mystic power he was able to enter into other lives. His success can be attributed to his ability to see God, which is perfection, in every person he contacted, however tragic, lonely, hopeless, or vicious that one seemed. Through his recognition of God in all men, he helped men to see God in themselves. This was the source of his great power. Pupil. Then imagination is a veritable dynamo and not just a means of trivial, idle daydreaming. Master. Yes, recognize your imagination as a dynamo of limitless power. Use all of it that you possess whenever you need it. Understanding of it and experiencing and using it will readily prove to be the most powerful force in your mental equipment. Used correctly, it will carry your light up among the brightest stars of highest heaven. It is not enough to dream and idly desire, not any more than it is enough to start an airplane motor just to watch the propeller go round and round. You must fuel your imagination with knowledge and purpose. You must take your bearings and hold your course. Risks, hardships, will be only still greater opportunities to use your imagination in your journey through the clouds. Pupil, all of this sounds very interesting and inspiring, but when I look about me and see the people who are succeeding, and who have so much more in life than I have, it is confusing. They do not seem to know or care a thing about God. How about that? Master, if I were you, I would try attending to my own knitting and start at once to develop my own power. Also, I would stop envying others their success. Pupil, oh, I am not envying anybody anything. I simply do not understand. Master, it would help if you would try to avoid a tailspin of self-pity. As soon as you observe someone who is getting on better than you are, you must project yourself into this life critically. Try doing this same thing constructively. Explore his tactics, his tastes, his imagination and industry, and then ask yourself if you might not get along better and faster if you adopted some of the means he employs. Pupil, how can I know how another does this work to succeed? And I did not realize that I have been feeling sorry for myself. How would it be to try to see myself as others see me? Master, it would help very much if you will turn your imagination on yourself without any excuses or alibis. Your imagination will show your true self if you have the courage to use it and trust it, and let your intuition help you also. End of chapter. Chapter 14, Husbands, Wives, and Children. Children, how to bring them forth if you wish them. Home, husbands, wives, if you desire them. Pupil, it seems to me that many of my married friends would be perfectly happy if only children would come to them. It seems strange they cannot have any. Master, no, it is not strange. It is all according to law. Principle is not governed by precedent. Children are the result of knowing, feeling, living the law consciously or unconsciously. They are the birth of new ideas, something different. Every baby is a new idea, a new form in which life lives. Get into the habit of developing new ideas, and you will find these very ideas taking the form of children. It need not matter what the new ideas are about so long as you fully develop them. Then mentally picture as many children as you would like to have. When about to give birth to the new idea in form, a baby, I would suggest the daily help of a really good mental science practitioner, also at the time of birth. With proper understanding, the birth of a child will be as natural as the spiritual idea that preceded the form. Pupil, all of this sounds very wonderful and convincing while I talk with you. At the risk of your thinking my mind a sieve, may I ask you to put all the 3 steps, husband, home, children, into concise, separate form? Master, very well. The idea of concentration is not a leaky one, and I shall be happy to present them in the order you name. But first, what does the word husband mean to you? What characteristics do you wish the husband to manifest? What should his disposition be in order to be in tune with yours? These are your very first steps along the way. Pupil, to me, husband symbolizes certain characteristics I would like to attract to myself from the masculine side of life, or quality of life, a type of man I admire. His main quality should be, for me, understanding and love. With these 2 attributes well developed in both of us, I believe happiness would be certain to follow. Master, with love and understanding well developed in husband and wife, happiness is certain to follow. The one certain way to attract this type of husband is to develop love and understanding in yourself. It is a very great truth that like attracts like. So first think over carefully just the type of man you feel could be happy with you. Pupil, oh, I thought I was to think of the qualities my husband should have to make me happy. Master, that method would help to develop self-centeredness, selfishness. But the other way is a reaching out to give what you have, and has a very great attracting power. When you have determined the type of man whom you feel would be happy with you, then take for yourself an early morning hour and thorough reading and meditation. Think yourself into the quality of life you wish to attract and hold the feeling. Herein lies the real value of holding your thought and feeling into place. Just like plugging into the light socket when you want light. If you keep pulling the plug, you will not get much light. The secret is, make your contact in thought and feeling and hold it with a happy, expectant attitude. Of course, this ability to hold an idea is arrived at by developing the will. Pupil, it seems to me that visualizing will not work unless the mental pictures made are held in place in mind. Is that right? Master, that is exactly right. They must be held in place. Again, just like the electric contact for lights must be held in place if you are to benefit by the light that will then stay on. Your magnet of thought and feeling draws from out of the whole universe such qualities as love, understanding, protection, provision, husband, children, whatever it is that you have visualized. Pupil, it is like a postage stamp then. It only has value if it sticks. Am I right about this? That what I really am, I attract. Might this not be the meaning of Jesus' statement in Matthew 13:20 when he said, "For whomsoever hath to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whoever hath not from him shall be taken away from him even that which he has." When one really has a husband in feeling and mentally pictures him, one really does have that husband, and he is sure to appear in form as a human being. Is this not having more abundance? How slowly I grow. First I want my husband to have understanding. Now I see that he is understanding. Master, that is it. Every conceivable thing that the human mind and heart can desire is already in existence. Like the electricity, it has always been there. And as soon as one realizes it and tunes a desire in with the quality of life, which it is the current begins to flow in that direction, then one has real abundance through continually having the recognition that whatsoever he may want he already has. Pupil, is the process the same if one wants several children? Master, yes, fundamentally it is the same. If we wish to manifest our new ideas of life in the form of children, it is necessary to make the desire known to God, the great, ever-present, formative, responsive, creative, intelligent power. It being responsive and creative, it manifests in form as children. Pupil, just what should one first begin to think and feel? Master, first let us suppose that your desire for children is in perfect accord with the divine plan to bring into earth existence a continual advancement of the human race. So your idea of the new birth is that you may be a means or a channel through which the all-creating principle of intelligent, beautiful, perfect life may reproduce itself in a new form, one capable of recognizing itself as an individualized action of pure spirit. Then, by reading good articles or books, or by meditating on an affirmation that appeals to you, you tune your thought and feeling in with the very highest rate of vibration. Stay with the thought and feeling until you are certain that you have made your contact with the divine intelligence, just as you are certain that you shall turn on the light when you have a plug in the light socket. You know under the latter circumstance that the contact is made because the room is flooded with light. And in the mental instant you know your contact is made because your whole feeling is flooded with certainty and a sense of security in God's love and power as they manifest in and through you. Pupil, it seems to me that one would have to keep constantly in mind the thought of begetting perfect ideas relative to every act. Master, Jesus said, "Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation." You feel towards God in the same way your child feels towards you. If you obey the laws of life because you love your father, your child will do the same. Pupil, is it necessary that both father and mother should desire the children? Should they take their meditations together? Should they discuss the hope of children? Master, if both father and mother desire children, the new idea will be a more perfect idea of God. It is not necessary to take the meditations together. In fact, I personally prefer to have all of my meditations alone. And it seems to me the less one discusses the desire with anyone, the more quickly and perfectly the desire manifests. If one talks about a thing, usually it is to put in the future and is rarely discussed as a present fact. Hence the manifestation is delayed indefinitely because of the habit of looking upon it as a future manifestation, as something that will be, rather than something that is. Pupil, how is this for a method of bringing children of your own into one's personal life? First, study and think over the fundamental law of life as always giving expression to its highest ideals and ideas in human form. Man is God's highest ideal, and the children of men are specialized ideas of the one great creative source of all things. Are not our children the result of God's idea of giving birth to our highest desires? Master, you have the right idea. Try to really feel that God, life, love, wisdom, is giving birth to a particular idea through you. Plant that idea, that thought seed, in the garden of your individual subconscious mind. By using your individual subconscious quality of mind in this way, you are doing your part to let all the creative energy in the universe act in and through you without limit. Thus you are a bridge between the two extremes in the scale of nature, one of which is the innermost creative spirit of life, and the other the particular, external form of a child. Your objective quality of thought power mentally sees your perfect child, then passes the thought and the picture into the creative power of your individual quality of subconscious mind, which in turn transfers the thought seed into all of the growing power there is in life, thus bridging the two extremes of nature. Your thought seed will grow into perfect externalization, just as a kernel of corn will when planted under the proper conditions. Pupil, this idea of a thought seed clears up the whole idea that my individual subconscious mind is the bridge between myself and the whole vast sea of life. Master, if you plant a kernel of corn, you first make sure the soil and the climate is the proper kind to grow corn. Pupil, does that mean I should look into my own character and physical condition and so forth to determine if I really am the type of woman to bear perfect children? Master, you are right. It is vitally important to know these things. Once you have found out that these are clear, and you and your husband are sure in your minds that you wish to create and form your highest ideal of love as children, then proceed. Remember that the seed you plant, having all the vitality, all the vital essence necessary to draw to itself from out of all life every element necessary to cause it to grow into a perfect outward reproduction, a perfect child. Every parent or parent-to-be should be an enlightened parent. and of course, and should do all within the power to bring forth, cherish, nurture, and rear the finest children possible. It will help those who are, and who desire to be, parents if they will inform themselves fully along the most scientific lines of this question. This they may do in numerous ways. Through the reading of good books on the subject, ones that are written by specialists, also by taking courses on the subjects that are offered almost continually through university extension programs, also in many places by city and state departments, and lastly, to seek the advice and care of the best physicians from conception forward. End of chapter. Chapter 15, Life, Love, and Beauty. Master, in his wonderful books, Judge Troward stresses often that the spirit of life is also one of love and beauty, and that where the one is, the others will be found too, as a matter of necessity. Where life is, love is. One is the correlative of the other. Where life and love are, beauty must be. Pupil, may we have another illustration to clarify this? Master, certainly, all persons have an appreciation of art. The ancient Greeks were supreme in the arts for many centuries. To this day, many of their works have never been equaled. I have never seen that fact more compellingly illustrated than it was one day last summer at our home on the Esplanade, Redondo Beach, California. A gentleman friend of mine, Mr. Smith, Worth Smith, my husband, who, like Mr. Smith, has been a student of the Great Pyramid for many years, called on us. He brought a wonderful book and showed us many lovely pictures of exquisite Greek vases. Alongside each photograph was a sketch of the same vase with the basic design highlighted in geometry, many lines drawn to salient features of the sketch. Of all the grace and beauty and absolute perfection of symmetry I have ever seen, or hoped to, these pictures and sketches had it, without a solitary flaw in any of them. Each was purest harmony, so much so that one marveled, and it seemed that music itself flowed from them. Each vase was an expression of God in his laws of life, love, beauty, and harmony, executed to perfection by artists in whom his love, beauty, harmony lived. Because of their adoration of beauty and its source in the Father, they were able to conceive beauty in the mind when planning the designs of the vase. No doubt they sketched the designs as shown in the book, by employment of the geometry in which they excelled. With the model before them, they then fashioned the works of superb harmony to glorify the earth. Wherever perfect harmony is, you will find perfect love, for they are twin blessings. Pupil, but all of us cannot make such masterpieces, you know, for all of us do not have such artistic talents, do we? Master, all of us have some talent within us. Unfortunately, many seem to never realize it, and never do anything about it. Even so, any person of intelligence can put into whatever task that one may have to do the spirit of life, love, beauty, and harmony, if only one will, and can make the fruits of the task many things of beauty. Some housewives, for example, make of housekeeping and rearing children a thing of drudgery as a result of their lack of illumination about the true divinity of housekeeping. Others put love, beauty, harmony, order, and joy into the same task and make a glory of it. It is a matter of the spiritual consciousness one has, or acquires through study, if it is not there innately. Pupil, will you please cite an example from the Bible which features this matter of consciousness of our divinity as being the root of all blessing? Master, gladly indeed. Study carefully St. Matthew, chapter 13, verse 12. Jesus uttered these golden words to teach mankind that like does attract like, invariably and infallibly. That passage states the law of attraction at its best, including an unshakable faith, visualizing by means of which one has spirituality, or in the mind, even that which is sought, and which serves as a magnet of infinite power to draw to one the glad fulfillment in form or physical reality, provided only one also works confidently and happily to carry out the ideas the Father gives one, through intuition, as steps in the path to the shining goal. Now let us directly quote the passage, then strip it bare of all the mystery so many claim it contains for them. Unfortunately to many, that verse remains a riddle for life unless they are sufficiently interested to seek until they find the key to its solution. The passage reads, "For whoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not from him shall be taken away even that he hath." The big question is, for whosoever hath, what? Does it mean the one who has wealth of money or property, or other earthly possessions? No, although the one who has the thing that is meant is certain to acquire financial independence and to retain it. It means simply that whosoever hath the consciousness of the Father within, who has the exalted awareness as an abiding conviction, who has implicit faith in it, and who actively carries on in the work that one does, whatever it may be, the ideas of life, love, beauty, and harmony, the Father gives the one in an unending stream. To the one will be given all he may ever require and to spare. But the person who hath not the high consciousness is subject to all the sorrows, lacks, and other inharmonious circumstances and conditions that can bring to bear upon him, even to the point of losing all he has gained through habitual employment of secondary causation. For since he has not the awareness, he is, or shall be, under the rule of an iron destiny, to quote Troward, and dwells in anxiety and fear, knowing not the eternal God is our refuge, and a very present help in trouble. Pupil, can that love, beauty, and harmony be caused to flow from one person, a practitioner, let's say, into and through another, so that the second party will be aware of the spiritual uplift and receive corresponding benefits? Master, yes, indeed, that is done easily. That is the mission of the practitioner, for he or she does these things for others many hours a day. I well recall an incident that occurred not long ago in the beautiful home of a dearly beloved friend and student in Denver. I was sitting with her privately in her lovely living room, holding her left hand in my right, thus completing a circuit exactly as an electric circuit is made, positive pole in contact with the negative pole. With my mind, I made contact with the love, beauty, and harmony the Spirit is. From the universal Spirit of life, those qualities flowed into me, and through me into my dear friend, and through her back to the universal. For minutes we kept the contact, and both of us were aware of the surge of tremendous power flowing through us. I have this friend's kind permission to mention her name. She is Grace Northcutt. It is she whose gracious generosity accounts for the new edition of this book you are now reading. Pupil, then it is true that as one makes it of a habit to consciously recognize God in one's daily, hourly, even minute-by-minute living, in that degree one will get good results. Master, yes, the correspondence is exact. As we apply the law of electricity, we are certain to get results that correspond to those laws only. It is folly to apply one set of creative laws to a problem and expect to get results that correspond to a different code. So it is that if we set into motion through concentrated and consecrated thinking the laws of harmony, then only harmony will manifest in and through us and in our affairs. Again I give you the golden key which will unlock any door of bondage, and which will never disappoint you if you persist in the use of it in wisdom. It is, I repeat, that 12th verse of the 13th chapter of Matthew. Pupil, how is it obtained? What price does one have to pay for the key? Master, the price is given in the 15th chapter of John, and is, as Jesus said, "Abide in me." That will put you in an entirely new relationship to your Father and to your environment, will open up many new possibilities hitherto undreamed of, all by an orderly sequence of creative laws that result from your new mental attitude. Thought is the energy by which the law of attraction is brought into operation. It is by thought that we keep the sap of life flowing from the trunk into the branches. The statement Jesus made in Matthew 13:12 is so important that he made it repeatedly, worded a bit differently, yet containing the self-same law he expressed therein. Pupil, may we have a schedule and some affirmation for daily use. If we have one before us in print, It should help a lot, it seems to me, in our follow-through. Master, first I shall give you 2 affirmations I have found very effective and powerful when consistently used with profound feeling. 1. Father, I thank Thee for the conscious knowledge that all my good comes from Thee only, and that I no longer look to man as a source of my supply. 2. God is my ever-present supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace and in perfect ways, so to bountifully supply my every need, and to spare. Moreover, a careful study of these 3 references will be of great aid. Mark 5:36 and 9:23, and John 20:29. Lastly, I am happy to give you an excellent routine for daily use that Troward himself gave to me. I have used it faithfully for 35 years now, and it is a powerful help indeed. It is this: Monday, watch your words. Tuesday, watch your feeling. Wednesday, watch your acts. Thursday, watch your receiving. Friday, watch your giving. Saturday, look for the spirit of life and love in everybody and everything. Sunday, let the Lord's Prayer abide with you continually. The end. End of chapter, end of book. This audio presentation of How to Live Life and Love It by Genevieve Baron has been brought to you by AudioEnlightenment.com and has been recorded for the exclusive use of Audio Enlightenment members only. If you have received this audio from any website other than our own, please visit our website and let us know at your convenience.